media. It's none other than WURD. Welcome to Reality Check and welcome to the middle of the week. It is the hump day, as they call it, here in this very active first full week of October. This first full week of October, we are in the final stretch of election 2020, the final stretch of election 2020. We have 26 days to go. 26 days to go. And if you need more information on how to get ready and vote, if you haven't already, you can go to, and especially if you're in the Philadelphia area or in Pennsylvania throughout the Philadelphia region, philadelphiavotes.com, votespa.com. Also, our partners are allvotingislocal.org for more information on how to navigate this election 2020, how also to look out for voter intimidation, how to respond to it. Also, if you feel like your rights as a voter are being infringed upon, 866-OUR-VOTE is very important. Please write that number down. I'm going to try to make a daily habit out of reminding people to call that number at certain points. That is a number you need to put right there on the refrigerator, put it under a magnet, if you got that kind of, the old school fridges or maybe the stainless steel ones and you like to put magnets on your fridge, that is a number you should have in a very accessible place in your home, 866-OUR-VOTE, because you may need that depending on how intense this election will be, how intense it will get as we get closer to November 3rd. I'm Charles Ellison. I'm your host, executive producer, also creator of Reality Check. You can catch me on twitter.com at Ellison Report, on twitter.com. That's where I roll on social media, hashtag Reality Check and hashtag Word on Politics. So welcome to the program. Welcome to the Wednesday edition. In fact, we're just going to go ahead and open up phone lines before we head into our next guest a little later on. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. You can also stream us live. Stream us live, as many of you do, on WURD TV. Just go to facebook.com/4word for the Facebook live stream, or you can go to youtube.com/onWURD. So many of you can leave comments in either of those WURD TV live streams. We do tend to follow the facebook.com/4word WURD TV live stream a little bit more closely than we do the other WURD TV live streams. Definitely, we'll try to make a better habit out of that and leave it there. But in the meantime, you can definitely leave your comments and your questions there. Thank you, Junior Lee. I see you, Junior Lee. Voting alert, call 866-OUR-VOTE. Thank you, Junior Lee, putting the word out. That is a very important number. It's perhaps one of the most important phone numbers of your life over the next month, over the next couple of months. 866-OUR-VOTE. And Junior Lee on the Facebook live stream is very much correct. If you see or experience any voter intimidation, call 866-OUR-VOTE. That is a 24-hour line. It is staffed. We actually had our Scott Seaborg, our partner from All Voting is Local. He's the Pennsylvania State Director. He came on the program yesterday and he was saying, how he was describing how 866-OUR-VOTE is staffed up. It's staffed up with lawyers full-time, and these are folks who are experts in election law, lawyers who typically work with organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, folks from Voting is Local, and a number of other Common Cause, a number of organizations who have lawyers who work on this as a career, as a profession on election law and protecting your constitutional right. That is your constitutional right. It's our constitutional right to vote. No one should be infringing on it. No one should be intimidating you. You should not be intimidating anyone in any way, discouraging them from voting. You should not be getting in anyone's face and discouraging them from voting. Whether that's at the polling station, and some of you folks out there, you want to kind of get into the shame discussions about no vote, whole vote, and try to bully people and make them feel like senseless or stupid for exercising their right to vote, exercising their ancestral duty to vote, you need to watch it. You need to watch it because you may be performing an example of voter intimidation. You may be infringing on their rights. So watch it out there, folks. So, you know, and please, let's all be a community. Let's all do this together and make sure that we protect all of our rights. We protect our right to vote here. Good morning to you, Luis Levy, who is watching us from Los Angeles, California. Hope you are well. Luis, I hope the air is a little bit better, a little bit cleaner out there in LA. So thank you for watching us. But Luis Levy, watching us from Los Angeles, California. She's saying, be safe, everyone. Yes, please be safe. Malcolm White, we see you too, watching and listening from West Mount Airy. Good morning to you. Good morning, Shirley J. Carter. How are you doing? So definitely appreciate all the folks who are listening in and here to talk with us on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. There are now officially 366 homicides in the city of Philadelphia in the year of our Lord 2020. 366 homicides so far. That is 10 more than the record that was reached in 2019. For the full year of 2019, we had 356 homicides. Now we are 3 months away from the end of 2020, and we are already at 366. We are 40% above. In terms of homicides, we're 40% above where we were this time last year. This time last year, we were at 261 homicides. The last time, well, actually, this is the first time we have gone above 311 homicides. That was the last time where we had 300 plus, at least based on the record that we have right now. That was the last time. In 2007, Philadelphia had 311 homicides at this same time of the year. We now have 366. At the current rate, we are well on our way to 400 homicides. And some people out there, if you talk to them, they are worried about us reaching 500 homicides. So can't talk about Chicago anymore. It's going down in Philly. And so people just trying to figure that out and scrambling and trying to figure out exactly what to do next. City Hall, you know, trying to figure some things out. You know, definitely, of course, there was some scrambling that was happening yesterday with the announcement of the city moving forward with, you know, because they know that they reached that milestone. So, of course, predictably, the city, the mayor, and the city council pivoted very suddenly and made this announcement that they're moving forward. We already knew about the lawsuit. Like, we already knew y'all were going to sue the state about, which is, you know, it's a necessary thing to do. Like, they should. The city should sue the state. Should sue Harrisburg, should force the Commonwealth to stay out of its way so that it can do what it needs to do to take guns off the street to make Philly a safer place. But we already knew you were going to do that. Like, you passed a resolution back in December, like you had already told us that. So we need to know what else you're going to do and what other ideas are out there, what other ideas are on the table. What's the unified, collective, collaborative, community-wide response? All hands on deck. Mayor, city council, the community, civic organizations, community organization, everyone on the same page, everyone on the same, like, yo, this is the plan. Like, we need to know what that is, but we'll talk more about that. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. City, speaking of just a little bit of local business, city council is holding a hearing today. This is today at 4:30 p.m. On the police response. They're holding a hearing on the police response to the May and June Black Lives Matter protest in Philadelphia. This made national news, you know, because Philadelphia police were rather aggressive in their response to those protests, using tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper spray, and other non-lethal weapons. Some sonic weapons, I believe there's reports of sonic weapons also being used against demonstrators, not just in Center City on I-676, but also in West Philly as well. So the City Council Public Safety Committee holding a hearing today, October 7th at 4:30 p.m. You can watch that on live stream, go to phlcouncil.com, phl.council.com. City Council has its own little internal TV station, and you can watch the city council members, also a number of demonstrators, residents, faith leaders, business owners, and other concerned residents chiming in on that situation. So we'll be, hopefully getting some updates on how that hearing went. So that's something else to look out for today, locally. Nationally, the big news, of course, is the vice presidential debate that is tonight, that is happening tonight between the current Vice President Mike Pence, former Indiana governor and former Indiana congressman, also former talk show host, and Senator Kamala Harris, who is the current running mate for former Vice President Joe Biden, the Democratic nominee for president. This particular debate promises to be a lot more insightful, a lot more revealing, and much more filled with substance. Definitely, we should expect that, if anything else, tonight during that debate. That debate will be on all primetime channels. This is a debate where I think more people will be tuning in, and I think more people will stay with it, will stick with it. It should be fairly contentious, and there will be some barbs flying and exchanged between the two running mates, between the current vice president and the running mate. Senator Kamala Harris is the first black woman to be on that stage, to be in a vice presidential debate. So it is very historic. This is the first time where you've seen a non-white person on that. It's not the first time we've seen a woman, because we've had women who've been a couple of times before who've been on that debate stage, but she's the first black woman. She is the first non-white person to grace that vice presidential debate stage. So it's a very historic moment. The expectations are very high. Probably the pressure is on Senator Harris more so than on Vice President Pence. And so a lot of people are anticipating a very, at the end of the day, a healthy and robust debate, and something where you will walk away from it remembering what people say, because there won't be a whole lot of rambling. Be forewarned, because I know people, they want Senator Harris to do well. I want Senator Harris to do well. Okay, Vice President Mike Pence, totally different ballgame. Okay, Vice President Pence is a very, very smooth operator. This is someone who has been in politics for a very long time, is very skilled in it, is very stealthy in the way he delivers messages. He's very sharp, very smart, more so, especially on stage, than the president. And Senator Harris, I'm hoping, is going to be very mindful of that and very careful. Do not expect this to be easy by any stretch for Senator Harris, or easy in the way that it was for Joe Biden last week. It was easy for Joe Biden because at the end of the day, the current president was just a rambling hot mess of an idiot. That is not the case with Mike Pence. You may not agree with him on everything that he says. That will definitely be the case. You will get incensed. You will be outraged by some of the things that he says. You will be outraged by the way he throws shade at, that he gaslights Senator Harris. You'd be like, did he just say that? Like, really? Like, this dude? But he will do it very smoothly and, dare I say, very effectively. And Senator Harris, I hope she's prepared for that. I've never felt like Senator Harris was the best debater. Mike Pence is. So I do hope that the Biden team and Biden himself prepared her well, and will do her justice tonight. I am worried about this vice presidential debate in terms of how Senator Harris performs. I'm just telling folks. Some folks out there may not matter. She may not do well, and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm already, and that's fine. That's good. That's cool. Because I still, at the end of the day, I think she's still a very capable elected official, a very capable, very, very capable, much more capable public servant than Mike Pence. Than Mike Pence and Donald Trump combined. I think she's more than qualified. But as far as the debate stage, I'm just being real with folks. Pence is very smooth. He's sharp. he is lethal. This is a guy who started off as a talk show host in India. He started off as a talk show host. A lot of people don't realize that. And he was very good at his job. And he transferred that skill set into politics, and it served him well. Let me go to Jackie out of West Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Jackie, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. On someone's spot, I heard the tail end of a show, and it said the reason Republicans are voting on Election Day is because your vote counts immediately. Please explain to me how our vote, who I do plan to vote today later in person, when will our vote be counted? That's my question.
Yeah, it's going to depend on the state that you're in.
I'm in Philadelphia, West Philadelphia.
Right, right. So, the counting is going to start on, and there's still kind of a back and forth over that in the legislature as far as the rules, but the counting, to my understanding, is going to start on like Election Day. And then and that's why that's why I've been telling people, do not expect a decision. Don't expect to have a full sort of picture of what exactly is, what's the vote, the full tally. Like, give it a week, maybe even 2 weeks, right? Just wait for it. I think the news outlet should not be projecting anything on that night, much less Pennsylvania. Because Pennsylvania you can make the argument, Pennsylvania is the most critical battleground state out of all of them. Pennsylvania, everybody's watching us. The world is watching the Keystone State. So yeah, I think people should still continue to vote early. I think that we should continue to have that open conversation, making sure that based on everything that I'm hearing and everything that I'm told and everything we're hearing when we're here on Reality Check or in WRD in general, the city commissioner's office gets it. Our county elections office gets it. They're going to be very guarded with those ballots. They're going to be very thorough in how they're operating. They're trying to be as thorough, and it's a lot. It's a lot of work to do, but it's good that we've put that kind of pressure on the commissioner's office. We haven't been light on them, especially since primary day back in June 2nd. I haven't let up. I've been like a very open critic of some of that, but now I'm like, okay, they're getting it. They understand, like, this is high stakes. This is not just like a normal job thing. Like, we need you to protect those ballots as they're being, make sure that everything's going smoothly and efficiently, making sure everyone's getting out to vote, making sure the polling places are accessible. And I appreciate you, Jackie, too, for voting and doing it early. I do encourage everyone to vote early. As early as you can. Take advantage of those, especially if you're in Philly, take advantage of those satellite offices that have opened up. There'll be more that will be opening up later. Take advantage of those resources to vote early.
Thank you for answering my question, and you be safe.
All right, you be safe as well. Thank you. And thank you for voting. Thank you for doing your ancestral duty. Thank you for doing your duty at this time. Voters, really, like, thank you for your service. As you tell like military folks, the same thing with voters. Like, this is a big deal. This is that kind of election. And so anyone who is voting right now is doing a service to their community. Thank you. Any people who've started, thank Jackie out of West Philly. I mean that. Thank you for your service. Because I think that applies in this situation here, because this is the political fight of our lives. And so we have to do it. This is that moment where we got to all step up. And I don't get these folks who are like, I'm undecided. Well, I ain't voting. Like, you're going to look like a damn fool. Here's my Red Fox moment. 20, 30 years from now, your grandkids are going to be talking about this moment in their social studies and history classes. And they're going to come to you and be like, Granddad, Grandma, like, what were you doing during that 2020 election? Like, how'd you vote? Did you vote? Like, what you going to say? What you going to lie? You going to lie to your grandkids and say, oh, yeah, I voted when you know you didn't? Or would you go, oh, I was undecided? What you mean you was undecided? What's that? Like, really? Like, but I'm reading here, and the teacher was telling us, like, this dude was like, he was like a hot mess. Like, the country was on the precipice. It was on the cliff. And what you mean you was undecided? You ain't vote. What's that all about? Like, okay, like, y'all, some of y'all out there, it's not the vast majority of y'all, but it's some of y'all still out there hanging on a thread, thinking that that's a logical and, and reasonable thing to do. Okay, so it's going to be a very uncomfortable conversation with your kids and your grandkids, like say 20, 30 years from now with this big moment. It's the same thing, like, so be a part of, like, let's make a great generation today. Vote. Do like Jackie out of West Philly. Vote, and vote early. It's just very important. All right, let me stop my rant. Let's go on to a break. I want to make sure, because yesterday I was a hot mess. Speaking of hot messes, but let's take a break here on Reality Check, and we'll be right back.
Hello?
Hey, you've been on my mind, so I'm just calling to check in.
Oh, we're holding up well here in Pennsylvania. Just trying to stay safe and figuring out if we should vote in person or by mail. We like going to the polls.
Yeah, you never miss an election.
And we're not missing this year either, and neither should you. But which way is the safest?
Well, remember that valuable information you got from AARP about COVID-19? Mom even had me read it.
Yeah, that was good info.
AARP has up-to-date voting information for 50-plus voters in every state. It's right there at aarp.org/election2020.
Oh, I got it. aarp.org/election2020. I love having the answers before your mama.
Pops, you know what happens when you try to show out.
Yeah, you probably right about that.
Are you hungry today? Have your taste buds been sufficiently pampered? Call Eatable Delights for succulent and juicy turkey wings, no-filler crab cakes, or tender smoky beef ribs. You can pick up curbside or get delivery in Philadelphia, Montgomery, South Jersey, Delaware, and Bucks County. Call 215-236-3900 or stop by 1540 Wadsworth Avenue. That's 215-236-3900, because even your taste buds deserve pampering. And tell them Solomon Jones sent you.
At PICO, we know one thing is certain. Times have changed. From kitchen classrooms to couch conference calls, searching for a new job, or new ways to keep your family connected. These changes have become a part of our reality. That's why our teams are working 24/7 to meet the needs of our communities. So no matter how much things change, you can depend on PICO to be there with the energy and help you need to power through. Learn more at pico.com.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. We are still in the 10 o'clock hour here on our Wednesday midday edition. Once again, if you're in Philly proper, Greater Philly, Delaware Valley, you are listening to us on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, as you see on the board behind me, or you can do the live stream. You can do the live stream on, there you go, WURDradio.com. Also on WURD TV on Facebook.com/4WURD. Many of you listening throughout the country, as we had like a listener from LA. I know from time to time we have folks from other parts of the country as well each day. You're listening to us at Facebook.com/4WURD. And you can download the WURD app. Where there is WURD, there is indeed an app for that. You can download that on your Google Play or Apple Store. Do that today. Do that. Just take you a few seconds. You won't have just maybe 10, 15 seconds at best. Download it, and it's very easy. Just press play, and you can take it wherever you go, wherever you can go during this pandemic. So at Ellison Report, #Reality Check. Joining us now is Aditi Juneju, who is staff on the National Task Force on Election Crisis. National Task Force on Election Crises. Go to electiontaskforce.org. They're obviously watching this election very closely. They're looking for any discrepancies, preparing for all sorts of scenarios, including some which are making us very uncomfortable these days, but we have to prepare for them as best we can. 26 days out from November 3rd. Aditi joins us here by phone. Aditi, how are you doing? Good morning.
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. No, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. So talk to us about the National Task Force on Election Crises. What is that?
The National Task Force on Election Crises is a group of 50 people from the left and the right who really come together to try to get above the fray of party politics and who wins and who loses to make sure we have a free and fair election in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it's do you work directly with is this like a public-private thing? Are you working directly with elected officials? Do you work directly with the parties, like the Democratic and Republican Party? Any particular government agencies that you work directly with? Or, it's just kind of like, hey, you're out there on the periphery and, working directly with communities to try to make this election as secure and as accessible as possible?
So we're working with basically 4 sets of people. One is we are absolutely working directly with elected officials. So we've been working with secretaries of state, with state legislators, with governors, trying to make sure that they are prepared for what may come. The second group of people we're working with is folks like yourself. We've been working with the media and with the social media companies to make sure that they are prepared and have the materials and information they need on what might be upcoming and coming ahead. The third group of, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah. And the third group of people we're working with are, messengers, folks who are trusted in their communities. We have a large network of faith leaders we've been working with. We've been talking to folks who are former military, business leaders, celebrities, folks who are really grounded, both folks who are grounded in their community and then also folks who have large social media presences to make sure that in the event of a crisis, people have access to accurate information.
I know you had all recently conducted a briefing, you did this last week, on the presidential transition of power. People have a lot of questions about that. People are very concerned because of comments that the president himself is making and just leaving a lot of uncertainty there, a lot of doubt about whether or not a peaceful transition, a smooth transition would take place, whether or not he would concede, et cetera. Well, let's start with this first. What is that, like, I guess, nightmare scenario as far as the conduct, the officiating of the election and the potential presidential transition of power that's keeping you up at night right now, DT?
I have to say I'm not really being kept up at night right now. I think that we have a really clear process for how all this stuff is supposed to happen. I think there is a difference between norms and what we're used to seeing in elections versus the rules and the law. And we have seen with this president that not all norms are respected, but the law is still the law. And so I feel pretty confident about the transition of power that will happen on January 20th, which is Inauguration Day. And I am not worried about it. I'm not up at night about it. I am wanting to make sure that people like your listeners know that. And they know that on January 20th, the previous president is no longer president, and either Donald Trump will be sworn in again or Joe Biden will be sworn in. But we will not have issues with the transition of power come January 20th, which is Inauguration Day.
Okay, good. I mean, people need to hear that because, I mean, you do have that crisis of confidence in government, that crisis of confidence in political process. That is just as bad these days as the pandemic, and then we have the infodemic, the misinformation, disinformation that's out there. The crisis in government has been dipping precipitously for quite some time now, and we need to make sure that we restore that. So this is very important. It's real important to try to restore that confidence as much as possible, especially as it takes place with elections. We're talking about the appointment, and I know during this briefing you talked about the appointment of electors in the Electoral College, and so there are deadlines. Let's talk a little bit about that. There are deadlines that have been set by federal law regarding the appointment of electors. So it can sound very complex and complicated the way the Electoral College works. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't like it because, I mean, for one reason, because of, you're thinking that, I mean, ideally, it's the popular vote should dictate how this turns out. But we have an Electoral College, and we got to work with what we've got. So what's happening right now with the Electoral College? Why is this deadline important, especially when we're talking about states potentially missing that deadline?
Yeah. So just to take one step back for your listeners, when we vote, we don't vote directly for presidential candidates. So when you cast your ballot, you will not, on the ballot it says Joe Biden, Donald Trump, but that's not who your ballot is cast for. When you submit your ballot, you are voting for a slate of presidential electors. And those electors meet in each state on December 14th. And so in Pennsylvania, there will be a group of electors that meet in December 14th, and they cast their votes for the candidate. And usually it's that the party decides who those electors are, right? So the Republican Party will have a slate of electors, the Democratic Party will have a slate of electors, and they will meet and collectively decide to cast their vote for either Donald Trump or Joe Biden, depending on how the popular vote in Pennsylvania comes out. The dates that this happens are on December 8th, there's what's called the safe harbor deadline, and that is the date for states to resolve disputes. So as it happens in every election, there are lawsuits and disputes over who the winner might be. It happens often in elections. People will remember the Florida recount, but that was just the most dramatic example of it. There are also just very normal disputes that happen. And December 8th is not a requirement deadline, but there's a strong incentive for states to resolve their election by that date to make sure that Congress treats the votes casted by that date as conclusive. Then on December 14th, the electors meet in their states. I don't know if they'll be doing it on Zoom this year, but in Pennsylvania, a slate of electors will meet and they will cast their votes, and they will send to Congress the list of people. They will send to Congress their votes to say that we voted for Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And the reason that it matters is that when Congress meets on January 6th to count those votes, or to count those votes, they need to know, what does Pennsylvania want? Who has Pennsylvania voted for? And so when they miss deadlines, if they don't have that, they're not then able to count the votes from the various electors in the different states. And so then that could potentially kick it to Congress to try to resolve the issues. But we're not anticipating that happening, and I'm not worried about that happening. But that's why that date matters.
Talk to us about, because to the layman or to the layperson, I don't want to say layman, layperson out there, so the average listener, and it still seems like a very inaccessible process, the Electoral College. How do we make that process a little bit more open? I mean, is this something, as that's taking place, like when electors meet in their respective states? First, I mean, how can people keep track of it, right? How can people tap into it or watch it as it's unfolding? It just seems like a very closed and secretive process. And then, like, how do people know? I mean, is there like a list of the electors? Like, it seems like each presidential election cycle, we don't know exactly, well, who are those electors? We might know how many electors are in a state, but it just seems like that's a very, and it seems deliberately so, it seems designed that way to be a very anti-transparent process. Like, people can't see it as it's unfolding. Why is that?
Well, it's about the history of this country, right? So the reason we have the Electoral College and not the popular vote is that it goes back to our founding, and it goes back to our founders' mistrust in democracy and in the American people. And this is a remnant of that. You're not wrong that it's not transparent. You're not wrong that there's not like a way for you to watch the electors cast their votes, or for and even finding out who the electors are is challenging. And you're not wrong, and you're absolutely right that it was done that way on purpose. And it goes back to what many of the challenges in our country go back to, which is America's history of racism and hierarchy and kind of class-based discrepancies. That you're not wrong. You're totally right, and it is intentional. You are correct about that too, and it goes back to our founding, and we are living with those decisions today.
Yeah. Do you think that there is? I guess while we're on it here too, Aditi, do you think that there is a point that we'll reach where, because there's been a lot of discussion about it this cycle? I mean, I think it's a great discussion to have. It's an essential discussion. It's kind of right now, I don't know, somewhat irrelevant because it's not going anywhere. It's not irrelevant. It's unrealistic to expect the Electoral College is going to be abolished in 2020 right now. But do you feel at some point down the line that could happen?
The National Task Force on Election Crises is right now really focused on this election and helping us get through any crises. And so we have all been learning up on how the Electoral College works and how these issues get resolved. So we've been really focused our attention on that. But we live in a democracy. There is always the possibility of future reforms when citizens raise their voices and rise up. And really a question for your listeners. Anything is possible. That's the virtue of living in a democracy, and also the challenge of living in a democracy, as we are currently experiencing with this administration.
Also, I wonder too. We have, speaking of election scenarios, this scenario has unfortunately come up, and it's on people's minds right now. What if the president becomes incapacitated between now and November 3rd, or worse, dies on his watch because of his COVID-19 infection, if his condition gets worse? What's happening there? What sort of scenarios do we see playing out if that happens? What's the contingency? Who becomes the acting president? Where do Donald Trump's votes go to? Do they automatically go to Mike Pence? I believe it's the Republican Party has to determine, okay, well, is this automatically going to then become President Mike Pence in the event that they are successful with the election? What happens in that particular scenario, DT?
Yeah, so we actually also had a briefing on this exact topic on Monday. And what happens if the president is incapacitated or dies before the election is the RNC, the Republican National Committee, has the ability to replace him. But the challenge with replacing him is that, as voters in Pennsylvania will know, ballots have already been cast, and ballots have already been printed for in-person voting, and machines have already been set up. So it's really sort of unlikely that they would be able to replace him on the ballot. But a vote for a presidential candidate, as we talked about earlier, is not counted as a vote for the particular candidate, but for the slate of electors. So it is possible that the Republican Party could replace him. His name would still appear on the ballot, and the slate of electors would vote for whoever the Republican Party replaced him with, because that would be their nominee. That is something that is possible. A challenge with that, though, is after 2016, and actually even a little bit before, some states have adopted faithless elector laws. So folks may remember that in 2016, after the election, there was a little bit of a campaign to try to get electors to vote for someone who was not Donald Trump, even though the state popular vote went for Donald Trump. And as a result, some states adopted laws saying that if you, as an elector, vote for a person who is not on the ballot, if you don't vote for the candidate that the party selected, you'll be replaced as an elector, and we'll find someone who will. And so that creates some challenges. I think that the most likely thing that would happen is that they would leave him on the ballot, and they would not replace him as a candidate, and so ballots would be cast in Congress. The whole process would happen as normal with Trump and Pence, but of course Trump would not be able to be sworn in on inauguration day, and as a result, Mike Pence would be sworn in, and then there would be a process to replace the vice president, which happens through Congress.
Real quick too, Aditi, here, how are we factoring in voter suppression?
Voter suppression is absolutely a challenge and a problem. One of the task force members is Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark. They're both on the task force, which is the Lawyers Committee. They have a hotline, 866 Protect Our Vote. If folks are experiencing problems at the polls, they should absolutely call it. That's 866 Protect Our Vote. And it is absolutely, a challenge. And we at the National Task Force on Election Crises really believe that every voter has a right to vote and to access the polls, and are monitoring that closely and working closely with groups that do that type of work every day.
It's something we definitely have to keep an eye on. I know you'll be keeping an eye on that process very closely. It's good to hear that there is something or an organization in place, so it'll be good to talk with you as we get a little bit deeper. Maybe we'll talk before November 3rd, DT. We've been joined by DT Juneju, who is key staff at the National Task Force on Election Crises. Go to electiontaskforce.org. It's all about ensuring that we have a free and fair 2020 election. There's a lot of smart people a lot of committed people who are on this task force. So looking forward to continuing the conversation with them and keeping an eye on this election with you. Aditi, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care. Let's take a break, and when we come back, phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
COVID-19 impacted a lot of things this year, including regular vaccination appointments. Vaccines help protect you and everyone around you, especially during flu season. Schedule an appointment with your healthcare provider today to make sure you and your children are vaccinated. Vaccines keep us safe, and they work. Skip the flu this year. Get your vaccination today. Let's stay protected together. For more information, visit health.pa.gov. Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Need a new mattress? Stop by to see Julian, the Mattress Man, located at 7421 Stenton Avenue. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure the best prices on name brand mattresses like Sealy, Posturepedic. Call 215-424-5550. That's 215-424-5550.
Good afternoon. My name is Samuel Staten Jr. I'm a Laborers International Union Vice President. I'm also the business manager of Laborers Local 332. I'm here to tell you why it's important for you to vote. Why? Because your vote puts protection on your prevailing wages. Why? Because your vote put protection on your health and welfare. Why? Because your vote put protection on your pension. Why? Because your vote put protection on your right to join a union and organize. Remember this, you are free to choose, but you are not free from your consequences of your choice. Please vote so that the great work of this great international union can continue to grow for generations to come. Thank you.
Don't forget to tune into Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. on WURD, WURD.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time, Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight. This program is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. We head into an eco-word segment a little bit later on. In 11 o'clock hour, we're talking with Erica Smith. Erica Smith with the City of Philadelphia, announcing the city's first ever urban forest strategic plan. Why is that important? You know, the city trying to increase the number of trees within it. That is not an easy task, nor is it something that is irrelevant to you and your quality of life if you live in Philadelphia. But it's very important, and probably people from other cities might want to listen in on this and talk about why tree placement, tree canopy is just so crucial, so critical. We have talked about it here before. It's one of those things that we typically miss in a lot of these conversations, but we have an eco-word conversation coming up in the 11 o'clock hour. We'll be talking about that. 215, and what that all means. 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Timothy out of South Philly, who's calling for a reality check. Timothy?
Hey, Charles. It's a pleasure, man.
Hey, how are you doing? Good morning.
Always. Yeah.
Pleasure.
I was listening to what you were saying about Pence and talk show host and, former governor, and now he's the vice president. And I'm just looking at the record of Kamala Harris, and we can never underestimate the undergraduate and Howard's debating team when she was on. We have to look at her background, and, and I remember I was at Lincoln University. I was not on the debating team, which was called the Tolson Society, which was based on Melvin Tolson, which was a movie of the Great Debaters. So we know that the HBCU student undergrad has some of the best debating team in the country. And as a graduate student, I was a Toastmaster and a part of the debating team there. But we also have to look at the mere fact that what the HBCU does to cultivate the mind of the undergrad, it makes them strong. It prepares them for graduate school. And the mere fact that she became a DA to a prosecutor, and she known to, if necessary, I think she will get the handcuffs, lock Pence up, and put him in jail, because I think that she will be able to topple him with the pandemic. And I think if you look at it in the past years, the White House is supposed to have been the safest place in the United States. They have a pandemic going on. She could tackle him on the pandemic. She could tackle him on education. She could tackle him on the economy. And she could So the ball is in Ms. Harris' court. And I guarantee you that she will stand head and shoulders over Pence. And his way about his demeanor and character as being smooth. And you know what? Everything that she has, she could tackle him. And she could just, guess what? Stand right over him and look down and say, "You're not up." They have nothing. They have nothing to say that they have done, only a bunch of mistakes. And say to him, as a vice president, you never corrected him. You never slowed him down. You never told how wrong he was. Now I say, you know what?
Timothy, I make this analysis or assessment of Senator Harris. I like Senator Harris, and I agree with you on that assessment. I think she heads in there strong with a lot of qualities and very strong. One thing that and I've talked about this before in this program during the Democratic presidential primary, Senator Harris in a debate format, she knows how to punch. I don't know if she's that skilled at counterpunching. That's what I didn't see her being as skilled as I would have liked her to be when it comes to counterpunching. When after she makes the punch and then someone counterpunches her punch back, it's like I've seen her kind of get thrown off a bit. So I hope that she's refined that. She's like eliminated that habit heading into this debate. I suspect that she has. And that she goes all in on the jugular as far as Pence is concerned. So that's my reluctance or my tendency to critique her on that. Oh, yeah, real quick.
Okay, I'm going to say this, that on the debating team, as a Toastmaster, the professor told us, he said, listen, it's not about jury speeches. He said, it's not about this long, embellished language. He said,
that's right.
In the debate, you set traps. And that's what she does. She's going to set a trap. He's going to fall into it. So look at that. That's what you do. You set a trap, then you set another trap until you what? Handcuff your opponent. And she's going to jail. And she will jail him.
All right.
He will win. He will win. Ultimately, he will win.
That's right. Okay. I'm going to be looking out for that. I appreciate that, Timothy. I like this kind of conversation. I think we go in there supporting Senator Harris and wanting her, expecting her to do well. But I think that, that this type of analysis is essential, to make sure that we realistically set people's expectations as they're heading into it, and that you're watching and people are carefully watching it. This is the debate that you can watch carefully where we'll get the substance out of it. We can get a bit more substance or a bit more sense as to exactly, well, what is the Trump-Pence agenda, right? Because we didn't get that last week. Like I said, I don't remember what the president said because he was a rambling idiot while he was on stage. It really was, and I'm not just saying that. I literally do not remember what. You could ask me, I'm like, oh, he said that? Oh, I don't remember. All I know is he was just like a mad idiot on stage. I remember what Joe Biden was saying, but I think with this debate, we're going to get that tonight, whether you agree with either side or not. Let me go to, thanks, Timothy, I appreciate that, and thanks for that. This is very smart analysis assessment from Timothy out of South. Let me go to Elias out of North Philly, calling in for a reality check. Elias?
Good morning, Mr. Ellison.
Good morning, all right.
Your email address, right? I was trying to send you something, but can you give me your email address again?
Sure. C. Ellison, C-E-L-L-I-S-O-N, right. C. Ellison, C-E-L-L, right, I-S-O-N.
Okay.
At WURDradio.com.
Got it. At Word. Less with a U. WURDradio.com.
Right. WURDradio.com. You got it. So yeah, it's an Ellison. Right. I know a lot of people out there, they forget to put that O in at the. People will call me Ellis. It's Ellison. Right. Yeah, like Ralph Ellison. I remind people I wasn't I don't know if I was related to Ralph Ellison, but the great author. But yeah, that's what that is.
Well, I appreciate that.
All right, yeah, but looking out for that. So, and see what's going on. Thanks for calling. Appreciate you. Thanks for checking in, Elias. We're going to be heading into the 11 o'clock hour shortly. We're headed to an EcoWord conversation. Also, don't forget, next week we've got our all-day EcoWord Environmental Justice Summit. That's going to be all day next Monday. It's going to be a very important session. We're going to be talking about environmental issues. This is your issue. Okay, let me tell you, because I hear this too often. But we've been through this exercise on WURD. Remember a few years ago, you first came on Reality Check, and he's talking about the environment. People were like, why are you talking about that stuff? That's white people stuff. No, it is not. This is very much a frontline black issue. The environment is a black issue. And WURD, to its credit, has recognized that, and that's why we have EcoWord. And we talk about environment all the time. This is in fact, this is one of the top 3 issues for black folks. And you know what? The state of the environment, as it's happening right now, it's unfolding at this pace, is going to make things like racism worse. So the environment, the state of the environment, the state of places that we live in intersects with all these other issues. You look at cases like George Floyd, Jacob Blake, Breonna Taylor, there is an environmental component. There is an environmental element or an environmental justice story that is in the backdrop or in the background of those cases. A very real environmental justice story that's there. So that leads up to those moments, that instigates or triggers those moments that have happened to, brothers like the late George Floyd, like Jake. You can see in all those, Trayvon Martin, there's an environmental justice component that plays into that. Like we can have conversations like all day and look at those big high profile incidents, and you see like the story of our struggle in these communities in our country. Everything is linked to some sort of environmental justice struggle, something dealing with air quality, water quality, the battle over space, the right to live in a space, the right not to be displaced out of that space, gentrificate, all environmental justice issues. The environment, things dealing with our ecology is very much, it has always been a black issue. So get that out of your head. Cut that out with that. It's a white people's issue. It's not. It's not. All right. It is a black people's issue. It is a black, brown people's, indigenous people's. We are being disproportionately impacted by these issues. Climate change, climate crisis, very much a black issue. And black people, we as black people, need to lead on it. So we're going to head into an EcoWord segment coming up in the 11 o'clock hour. Let me take a break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the City of Philadelphia's Urban Forest Strategic Plan. That's coming up in the 11 o'clock hour. We got Erica Smith joining us next here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The pandemic is not only putting everyone's health at risk, it's also impacted our jobs and retirement security. And it's disproportionately affecting African Americans, especially those 50 plus. That's why AARP Pennsylvania is fighting for your voice to be heard. If you haven't voted yet, now is the time to learn about your voting options and cast your ballot. We're working to make sure you can vote safely, whether you choose to vote from home or in person. And if you choose to vote by mail, make sure you return your ballot using both envelopes. Your ballot goes in the smaller envelope for secrecy, and that goes into the larger envelope for mailing. Also, don't forget to sign the voter declaration on the back. Your voice matters. Make sure it's heard. Go to aarp.org/PA votes to learn about your voting options and how to vote safely this election. Visit aarp.org/PA votes today. Paid for by AARP.
Jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Livelihood. The new initiative from WURD Radio to connect Philadelphians to resources to help take the next steps in their professional lives. WordWorks.com features career readiness tools, entrepreneurship resources, funding opportunities, and events to expand your livelihood. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network.
Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing at St. Raymond of Pinafort Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. For testing hours and more information, call 1-833-533-3463.
WURD Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the upcoming election.
This is Charles Ellison, host of Reality Check on WURD. So with all this talk about vote by mail, you're probably wondering, will my ballot be counted? No worries. 40 states, including Pennsylvania, are tracking mail-in ballots. Simply go to votespa.com and click on Mail-in and Absentee Ballot to find out if your ballot was received. Or go more directly to pavoterservices.pa.gov and click on Election Ballot Status to enter your name, birth date, and county. Keep following us at onWURD on Twitter, facebook.com/4word, and #WordOnPolitics for constant updates on election 2020. And remember, vote early.
Stay informed and vote. For more from Charles Ellison, tune in Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or visit wordradio.com. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, we're back at it. It is the Wednesday midday edition of Reality Check here on WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. We are back, and Wednesdays are also eco-WURD days, typically, where we look at the intersection of environmental justice, race, racism, class, and all those other issues. We show how everything dealing with the environment deals with or intersects with everything else we're dealing with as a community. You can go to ecoword.com for more information there. We're going to talk about the city's newly or recently unveiled urban forest strategic plan. We have Erica Smith with City, who is a part of that effort, who is leading on that effort. Go to phila.gov, obviously, for more information. Check out more information on the recently rolled out urban forest strategic plan. The city had recently announced that a company by the name of Hinge Collective will be leading the planning process for developing the city's, and this is apparently the city's first ever urban forest strategic plan. So, you know, some people who've grown up and live in Philly and you see Fairmount Park all over the place and you're like, really, this is the first time they've had an urban forest strategic plan? But apparently they're going all out, all cylinders moving forward towards this urban forest strategic plan. So I'm real curious to learn more about it. We've got Erica by phone. Hi there, Erica. Good morning. Erica, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Uh-oh. All right. Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Good, good. What's the role that you play with this urban forest strategic plan? You with the city or Hinge Collective?
So I'm with the city's Parks and Recreation Department in the Urban Forestry Division, and I am the project lead on this strategic plan.
Okay, okay, great, excellent. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And so this urban forest strategic plan, what does that mean exactly? It's the first time the city has ever done something like this, which might surprise some people. So explain it top line, what it is, what does it mean, what will it do?
Sure. So I think it's first helpful to define what an urban forest is, because people, like you said in your intro, they think of Fairmount Park, but the urban forest is every tree in the city, right? It's street trees, it's yard trees, it's alleyway trees, it's trees in our forest. And so we are used to thinking about trees individually, and the way that they're managed is very different depending on where they're growing. So think about that street tree versus the alley tree versus the forest tree. They're managed in very different ways because the property ownership is different. But the trees don't understand those divisions, right? And in order to properly manage the resource, the city and nonprofit partners and scientists and especially residents need to work together toward shared goals. And so the plan is going to lay out a way to do that with recommendations for managing the canopy, for areas to prioritize for new plantings based on equity, for recommendations for how to change policy to protect existing trees, where to access funding, and more over the next 10 years.
Oh, wow, yeah, this sounds pretty fantastic on its face. Now, you sort of explained, you started to give us a sense of why a city needs an urban forest strategic plan. And I love how you did that, where you gave us the definition of an urban forest, because I think people need to understand that. We need to know that starting off in this conversation. And so let's talk about the benefits of more trees, of more tree canopy, because, if you're growing up in Philly, a lot of people, depending on where you live, you might have grown very used to seeing a lot of trees. But so when we're talking about planting more trees and creating more tree coverage, more tree canopy, how are we explaining to Philadelphia residents how this is important, why this is a very crucial thing to do?
Well, I think, there are some things that people already know about the benefits of trees, about how they provide shade, how they they capture stormwater so that it doesn't flow into our rivers and increase the pollution of our rivers, the aesthetics of trees, beauty. But I think, the benefits of the aesthetics and beauty, research actually proves that greenery can improve people's mental health. And I do think that over the past 6 months, people are starting to really take that more seriously than they have in the past. So, in addition to these benefits like reducing the heat island effect in the city, capturing particulates in the air to clean our air, capturing stormwater to clean our rivers, there is this mental health benefit as well.
Talk about, so those mental health benefits, I think, are, they're real crucial, real critical, and people are more aware of it, cognizant of it in a time like this, in this pandemic. People understanding now, like, okay, why we need that green space, why that more greenery is just important for people's overall mental health. Can you talk about, like, that physical health component, like the air quality piece? I think is really important, particularly in a city like Philadelphia, where asthma rates are very high, respiratory illnesses are very high. And this is not just like in a senior or elderly person's problem. I mean, you have like a lot of like high asthma rates among kids in a lot of parts of the city. So talk about, do we see those studies showing the short-term, near-term, long-term health benefits, like direct physical health benefits of more trees, and just kind of helping people understand, hey, listen, this type of thing, it not only enhances quality of life, it can save your life.
Yeah, and I think that air quality is a huge piece of that. I also think that, the city has been focusing a lot in the last couple years on heat in the city and the effects of heat on people's health. It's just a suite of effects, right? And a lot of people in the city have underlying conditions that make them even more vulnerable to the effects of high heat. Some neighborhoods in the city can be up to 22 degrees hotter than other neighborhoods, and so the effect of a healthy tree canopy on people's physical health and the heat that they're experiencing and how that impacts the rest of their health, including respiratory problems, it really can't be understated. I also wanted to say that, you know, part of the reason that we're doing this is that we released a study last year in partnership with the Forest Service that showed that we actually are losing about 6%. We have lost 6% of our tree canopy in the last 10 years, despite a lot of efforts from the city and partners to do tree plantings. Those trees are still small and will take time to grow and really impact the health of the city. And we are losing large trees, and that means larger tree canopy. And so that's also a big part of why we're doing this now.
Does the city have a program or a certain policy in place? Like I know certain states, like I know that neighboring Maryland is a state that is a really good example of this. They had a governor a long while back, I think it was Paris Glendening, I think it was his name, who had instituted a new policy whereby, like, for like a tree planting and restoration space policy that's, to this day, I think he did this back in the early 90s, and to this day it's still, you know, very much thriving in the state of Maryland, where, like, you know, for something to the effect of, like, basically every tree that, like, a developer cuts down, they have to plant trees. Like, they have to plant, like, you know, a number of trees. So every time you see a new housing development go up in the state of Maryland, you see trees being, you know, very earnestly and aggressively planted in that neighborhood. So, you know, do we have, like, similar policies in Philly whereas the mayor considered, like, that similar kind of policy, like, especially with a lot of the real estate development that's taking place in Philly? Okay, and there's going to be some tree cutting that happens in certain places, or tree destruction. Okay, well, hey, you know, maybe teaming up with developers and say, hey, you know, we need you all to create more green space. Like, or for example, I was watching how, you know, you have certain cities, I know in London, they're becoming a lot more aggressive about this, where it's not even just trees, they're, like, literally building or installing, like, grass and flowers as, like, walls of flowers and grass along buildings, either at the top roofs of the buildings or along the siding of the buildings. Do we have those types of programs being considered or implemented in Philadelphia?
Well, we do have some of those rules through the zoning process for new developments of different types. It doesn't include all new developments, and there are different rules depending on what type of development it is. But their policy is going to be a big part of this plan, and we're going to be really examining how we can strengthen existing ones and then put into place other publicly supported policies to protect trees. We don't have any tree protection policies currently, and so anyone can remove a tree on their property. And part of what this plan is going to do is talk to people and find out what they think we should be doing for the publicly for policy to protect existing trees, because that's a big part of the puzzle that we don't have in Philly.
I didn't realize that. That kind of goes to my next question, segues into my next question. I didn't realize that the city didn't have a tree protection policy. I sort of suspected it. Well, so I guess this new forest strategic plan, that's going to be the new policy. That's going to be the effort to implement, to change that, to say, you know, you can't just randomly or arbitrarily touch trees or destroy them. Is that what I'm gathering here?
Yeah, so the plan is going to provide a number of recommendations for how we can implement policy like that and what types of policy would be publicly supported. And then it's up to us, our partners, and especially the residents of the city to really advocate for those changes to happen, right? So there's a role for everyone to play to make sure that we can enforce that policy. We can pass it in the first place and then enforce it as well.
Yeah. What's the, you know, so many questions here, because I think it's a wonderful thing. I think, you know, the city has to do it. I guess it's just, you know, a lot of questions, Erica. as far as implementation, how we're going to go about that. I think it's an essential thing. I think the city should do it. I'm really encouraged to hear that the city is doing it. What's the so there are multiple questions here. What's the level of cooperation like with other agencies, right? I mean, this is obviously a Philip Parks and Rec thing, but you know, how are you coordinating with other agencies to ensure? Because I remember growing up, I had the good fortune of growing up on a block or a street in North Philly that had a lot of tree line. But at a certain point, then I think it was the streets department. I had like a big tree that was out in front of my house, my row home on Wagner Avenue in Logan, and they cut that tree and a few other trees down because the trees, I guess, were so old and big, the roots were buckling through the sidewalk, and it was just a really sad day when it happened. You know, people were actually kind of like crying, you know, because they're like, we grew up with these wonderful trees, and it was warm, it was cooler during the hot months. Are we having, is Philip Parks and Rec, are you having those conversations with other city agencies like Streets Department or the Water Department or, you know, whomever else to say, hey, listen, you got to check in with us first, or you got to check in with this plan first before you start cutting down trees to, you know, do renovations or do repairs on sidewalks or streets or whatever? What's that level of coordination like?
Well, we have a really large project team that has been working on this plan. You know, we just announced that we chose a consultant, but we've been working to get to this point for, I mean, even up to several years, really. We started hosting stakeholder engagement events with existing city agencies and nonprofits that do work in the city in 2017. And throughout the last several years, we've been meeting with those groups. They have been instrumental in getting the scope of work together for this strategic plan. That project team includes the Water Department, the Commerce Department. It includes the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. It includes the Forest Service. It includes Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, Fairmount Park Conservancy, and many other groups. And so it's actually quite a large collaboration that has been working already up to this point and will continue to work. We have subcommittees for funding to try to get ahead of implementation fundraising. We have subcommittees for the technical aspects that include staff from all of these different agencies and nonprofits. So it is quite a large effort that does include collaboration across city agencies, nonprofits. And then we will include a steering committee as well in the process that will have residents and smaller community organizations that represent different neighborhoods across the city.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a lot of intentionality, Erica, and awareness around how, because those studies are there. There were studies done in Philly about the benefits of increased tree canopy and reducing violence, because the city has reached a milestone. I'm sure you've heard as of the past couple of days. It's already surpassed its record rate of homicides from 2019. Tree canopy, based on research that I've seen, can reduce violence by as much as 13%. So is there intentionality with this effort to try to align it with the city's anti-violence efforts to show, okay, hey, listen, you know, the more trees and are you working with or talking directly with community groups or frontline civic organizations in heavily impacted communities or communities that are right now being challenged by that violence and saying, hey, listen, here's a strategy that can work. You know, it's not going to totally eliminate the violence, but it has a significant impact on reducing violence in this city.
Well, you know, through the process of the plan, we're going to be identifying priority areas that we want to be working with in the city that have low tree canopy, but also have different vulnerabilities to the high heat, for example, and other socio-economic, demographic, you know, factors that make the communities more vulnerable to the lack of tree canopy, really. And so I think crime will certainly be one of the factors that is included in that. And I want to say also that, you know, research also shows that well-maintained trees and well-maintained greenery has the best impact, and poorly maintained can actually have the opposite impact. People feel less safe. They they have more perceptions of violence, even if it's not actually happening. And so there's a lot to be said for the way that we need to be managing that resource in areas where perhaps the trees and the greenery is really not contributing positively to the neighborhood right now, but it could in the future. There's so much, right, with this topic.
Yeah, it really is. So when the tree planting takes place, this is going to be a obviously aggressive, and there's thousands of trees to plant in the city. It's a large space, and so I wonder, who's going to be planting the trees? Because there's also like economic benefits to this kind of plan, to this kind of rollout, and so are we being aware of that? This could be something where, you could have a very high level of youth engagement, you could have a very high level of engagement, and also economic opportunities, job growth opportunities, landscaping opportunities for low-income, vulnerable residents, Black residents in the city of Philadelphia that are suffering and being challenged by high unemployment. So are we looking, I want to make sure that this project, as we're implementing it, it's benefiting all Philadelphians across the board. You're having those necessary conversations directly with a lot of low-income, vulnerable communities in Philly, particularly Black communities, and that they're not viewing it as like, oh, this is just another stage towards future gentrification of the city, planting more trees to make this city more accessible and comfortable for the demographic, for white middle-class professionals who are more and more moving into the city. But it's here to make the spaces that we have, that we're living in and we've lived in for a long time, comfortable. So I wonder about if that conversation is taking place and if the city's going to address that as they're doing. Because I think, like I said, we want to reiterate, it's a wonderful thing, but I know that those people are going to start reacting and responding to it in that way. I think as long as the city addresses it, I think we can make this a really successful effort.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I really appreciate that question. I think what people have started to call green gentrification is a huge problem, and a huge problem to getting people engaged in something like this because of what you're saying. One of the things that we're doing really intentionally with the strategic plan is we're going to have multiple levels of public engagement. We'll have a citywide survey, messaging, that kind of thing. We're going to work with existing stakeholder groups and new stakeholder groups to do focus groups, but we're also going to be looking at specific neighborhoods that we prioritize based on some of the factors I was saying before, and we're going to be working directly with them and their communities to figure out, what is their perception of the urban forest, what do they need in their neighborhoods, and to actually do education with them and have a back and forth flow of information. They will be providing perspectives from their community to us to inform our recommendations with the plan, but we will also be providing education, providing support through technology for them to reach their neighbors and other types of support for them to be doing this work. And so I think, when we develop the plan and we finally implement it, it's going to be a suite of recommendations, and those recommendations will include a lot of how the existing partners can take the resources they already have and also leverage what they have to fundraise more, but all work towards the same goals and make sure that we're all working smart and together. And I think we also, as a city, have a great example in some of the work that the Office of Sustainability is doing with their Beat the Heat steering committee, where they're working directly with residents on what do you need in your neighborhood and how can we support you in getting that and getting the perspectives of people from different areas of the city. So yeah. I think that it's a really good question. It's a hard one to answer, but there is a lot of thought going into that and a lot of intentionality about the way, with regards to the way that we're doing the public engagement and the way that we plan on continuing those relationships upon implementation of the plan.
It's going to be real important. I guess people can go to find out more about the plan. Erica, I noticed that you can get information on the Urban Forest Strategic Plan at the mayorsfundphila.org. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the website we're going to host a website with a lot of information on phila.gov. Right now, you can find out information from the Mayor's Fund website.
Okay.
And I apologize for not having that URL memorized yet, but we will eventually have a phila.gov that will be updating regularly with information about how people can get involved. We currently have a newsletter that people can sign up for to get updates as well.
Great. Good. Yeah. In the meantime, definitely go to mayorsfundphila.org. Click on our initiatives, and you'll see Philadelphia's Urban Forest Strategic Plan. Click on that. You can get more information on it, see where you are. Also, you can get information on it. Click on getting information on getting a free yard tree. People can get a free tree right now in Philadelphia. So, just wonderful work here. Erica, please keep in touch. Keep me posted on how this is going, and let us know what help you need to make this effort really, truly successful and make it a really truly inclusive community effort, because I think it's really important. Philadelphia is always one of the great features of Philadelphia is trees. And I'm not the only one who says that as someone who grew up in Philadelphia. Many people who are out-of-towners who visit Philly, that's one of the things they always compliment us on is the trees. It's something that always takes them by surprise, because especially when we talk about our trash problem, they don't know, oh wow, you guys got this massive park, and they always think it's Central Park in New York, but Fairmount Park is better. So thank you. So I really appreciate this work, Erica. Please keep us posted and consider us a partner on it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity.
All right, good. We'll be in touch. Take care. Be safe out there. Okay, let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll be talking to Context Media Group's Torrin Walker coming back to join us. And we're going to talk about expectations for that debate and other things. What's the Black agenda in 2020? And depending on what the outcome is, what is that beyond and other issues? And we'll open the phone lines for this as well. If you'd like to, you have questions, if you'd like to chime in on that conversation, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve of this message.
But they've got the experience.
I'm still in shock 3 or 4 years later that we're in this position now. Our democracy is at a pivotal point.
From the top, we don't trust our government. We see the trouble we're in economically. We've got 170,000 Americans dead, and yet this president will do anything he can to make it seem like things are better than they are.
I did more for the Black community than anybody with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln.
It's our responsibility. If we don't lead that effort to make things better, we can't ask other people to do it. There is no good reason not to vote.
Right, we need to have individuals that are in office like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They are our best shot to take us forward.
And that's what makes me incredibly hopeful, but we really do have to work for this thing.
To the thousands who did not vote, we need you to show up for our future and for our country.
You cannot sit on the sidelines. You got to get in the game.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Dietz & Watson has been making premium meats and artisan cheeses for over 80 years. And when it comes to stacking sandwiches and party platters, they've got something for everyone in the family, like maple honey turkey breast, American cheese, buffalo chicken, and more. So get to your local deli and taste 4 generations of family recipes. With Dietz & Watson on the table, you'll have everyone coming back for seconds and thirds. Dietz & Watson, it's a family thing since 1939.
This is Pastor Alan Waller, and I want to remind you of the immortal words of Pastor Leon Sullivan, not burn, baby, burn, but build, baby, build. Since 1968, the Sullivan Progress Plaza has been the place of entrepreneurship in the Black community. We are still building, baby, build. And we want to invite you to come along with us if you seek to invest in our community and make a difference in the new world that we're going to create. For more information, call 215-232-7070. I want to invite you to be a part of the new future of Philadelphia.
Tune in this Saturday at 10 a.m. for the Educational Pulse with the School District of Philadelphia with host Dr. William Haidt.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio. onWURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. We're waiting on Terren Walker, a Context Media Group. Go to @TerrenWalker on social media, on Twitter. ContextMediaGroup.com as well. I'm going to bring him on he's going to be like a occasional contributor here on Reality Check. We talked to him not too long ago. He's a good brother. He's doing some good work and just doing some good awareness work and injecting a new voice and new perspective in the conversation. The phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. I was very saddened to hear yesterday someone had notified me, this happened last week, I didn't know about it until now, that the great Dr. Patricia Newton passed away or transitioned last week. It was very sudden. It took a lot of folks by surprise. For those who don't know, we had her on the program back in June. Dr. Patricia Newton was doing the work. She was a nationally renowned psychiatrist, and she had founded and established and was the CEO, medical director of Black Psychiatrists of America. She had been doing groundbreaking work on Black trauma, and she was on this program talking about the state of Black mental health, but how we've been dealing with trauma, and she had was talking about post-traumatic slave disorder, and or post-slavery traumatic, post-traumatic slave disorder, where I think I have that correctly, but talking about the hundreds of years of trauma that Black people, that we as the descendants of our enslaved ancestors have been absorbing, have been acting out, have been dealing with and challenged by for several hundred years now, and that trauma is ongoing. She was doing that work. I'm so saddened. I found this out in email from one of her good friends who reached out to me directly and told me that Dr. Patricia Newton, who is now an ancestor, had transitioned, and it hit me hard because her and I had been talking about, and we've been in and out of touch, and the pandemic made it much harder. She was living in Baltimore. We were looking at doing more work together and really having more conversations. We're looking at trying to figure out the schedules, bring her on the show more to talk about Black trauma, because we don't talk about it enough. We go through this trauma every day, every minute of the day. We go through cycles of trauma, and our trauma is a lot more intense and deeper than what other groups of it, because of the history, because of what we've been dealing with for so many years, and what our people before us, our ancestors before us, dealt with, and that trauma has just been transferred all throughout the generations. And she really was doing some just pioneering work on that. So not only will she be missed, but it's just a very deep loss to the community. And so she had been passing that legacy along to other folks, and other folks are out there having that conversation. So she had been passing the torch. But Dr. Patricia Newton, founder of Black Psychiatrists of America, she'll be sorely missed. And so we do, but she's with us in spirit. And we'll, maybe at one point, we'll play that episode. We may need to play that episode, Troy, maybe if not this week, maybe like find an opening and replay that segment from June of this year where we talked with her and she talked about Black trauma. It's a very important conversation. So I was just truly stunned and shocked. I still can't get over that, because I was really looking forward to doing some more work with her. And just finding out too, I was on the Mayor's Fund site, and I did not know this, and I feel so bad. This young brother who it's here on the Mayor's Fund site, we had interviewed him, I think it was early last year, a year before. Kyle Shenandoah, a civic activist in Philly, was killed in a tragic accident last August. I did not know about that until I just went to this Mayor's Fund site. So I'm kind of like, wow, it's another good brother. So, we get so busy and we get so caught up, and there's so much going on. And then we have the pandemic, and I do know that there are probably people out there who've been hurt, harmed, or worse by this virus, and I probably don't know. And I feel so bad. It's so hard to keep up, even in this day and age when there's so much access to information and you have so many different ways to keep in touch with people. Let me go to Terren Walker. He is on. He's finally joined us. founder, CEO of Context Media Group. Go to contextmediagroup.com. Highly engaged on social media, thought leader, doing the work as well, and focused on issues like that, like what Dr. Newton was focused on, and others, and a major advocate too for brothers, for black men. And we need that. Terren Walker, at Terren Walker on social media. He joins us by phone. Brother, how are you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing well, Charles. How are you doing today?
All right, I'm hanging in there. It was some really hard news to absorb yesterday when I got that email. So I just want to make people aware, for those of the who were aware of her and her work. But yeah, she's going to be sorely missed. But hanging in there. Otherwise, it's good to talk with you.
Yeah, I just said about that too, just from you, and I'm sorry to hear that as well. We really need to have a cultural conversation about post-traumatic slave disorder and some of the trauma that we deal with as a culture.
That we do. I don't know if you want to give some thoughts on that, because Dr. Newton too was she was very concerned about the impact that this was especially having on black men, and she was really working hard. She was putting some programs and initiatives in place that were specifically focused on brothers and how that trauma was particularly pernicious as far as we were concerned. I don't know if you want to give some thoughts on that, on how we're not talking enough about this trauma.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a trauma that affects all of us, regardless of how we identify. But I think for black men, it's particularly vicious, because black men are already locked into this idea of what a man is, and we don't have any living role models as a majority to tell us what that looks like. So we fall back into these ideas of like strength and stoicism, which are good in certain ways, but there's some things we need to abandon. And as far as like our emotional well-being, there's absolutely no real work done in the mainstream in academia, definitely not academia, and very little in psychology to address that. We're barely just, black men, we're barely seen as human beings in this country. You already know that. So to really do any work about our inner lives is something that really needs to be addressed. And I think there are people out there who are actually still doing that work. I know like Dr. Georgia Glory still does a lot of that work. And there are people who are doing it, but they're not mainstreamed as of yet. That really needs to be mainstream for our own well-being and for the well-being of the country and our people we love.
Yeah, it isn't in the mainstream. She was trying to, through conversations. I mean, she was focused on black people in general, but she was really even more intent on brothers, on black men, and she would break it down. She was the reincarnation of folks like Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, the folks like we grew up with. And she would give these very difficult presentations and uncomfortable conversations. But I was like, I watched her I had put together this Congressional Black Caucus panel on black mental health a couple of years ago, and I watched as she gave, and she was one of the people on that panel. I was like, I gotta have this sister on the panel. And she delivered it, and people were like, "Oh, I didn't realize that." Like, you could see the looks on people's faces, and after they came up to her, they were like, "Wow, you just kind of enlightened me today." So you're right that she was trying to make that a mainstream conversation, and it's so unfortunate that it's not, and we've got to figure it out. Hey, Terren, the VP debate. I know I'm switching gears here, and maybe at some point we'll definitely talk more about. About black mental health and black male mental health. But the vice presidential debate is tonight. I know a lot of people are going to be focused on it. We'll all be watching it. Kamala Harris is going to be the first black woman to do this. What are sort of your expectations for tonight? The symbolism that you're going to see in that, the expectations, this being this black woman on stage during this VP debate at this moment in time. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think what we're going to see tonight is the manifestation of black excellence. You're going to see the combination of the education you get from HBCUs and the idea, which is really a fact, that for black people you have to be twice as good to get half as far. I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a very strong black woman basically decimate this guy. I've seen Pence on debate podiums before when he's tried to speak and he's not good, and she's going to watch this. She's going to watch this dude as far as like from a debate standpoint. Now, what I'm concerned about is how is she going to address some of the issues that affect black people specifically? Because there are certain things that he can hit her on, and if she doesn't really get in front of and manage those properly, you could score some points off.
Right.
But as far as the symbolism, I think
go ahead.
It's beautiful. Now, as far as the symbolism of it and what it looks like, it's going to be beautiful. I think it's going to be, just a manifestation of that whole idea of black women can do it and black women can lead. And I think she's going to really, represent that on the stage. I just want her to be sure that she has her points together because there are some people deal with it on.
Right. Just that last point, Torin, you sounded a little bit muffled, so I just want to make sure we hear you. What was that last point?
Okay. How about now? Is this better?
Oh, yeah, that's much better. There you go.
Okay.
What was that last point?
I was just saying that, when there are certain things about her record in California that he could hit her on. So if she doesn't get in front of that and she doesn't explain her reason for why she moved the way she moved in the past, that could be something that could be a problem. But I think she's going to do very well.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think you hit the mark. That's interesting. I mean, I have my concerns because I know that Pence, being life in politics, former talk show host that got him into politics, he's not like Trump. So you're looking at a much sharper, smarter dude, smooth operator than Trump is. And I remember Trump did raise that 94 crime bill last week, and because he was acting like such a hot mess of an idiot, Biden was able to kind of ease his way out of it. But you're right. Definitely you see Republicans, which is it's ironic given the types of stuff Republicans are involved in and do, for them to be even acting as if they're concerned about those issues. But yeah, no, she's got to be prepared for that. The other thing too, I'm real curious, because you were talking about how she addresses issues in the black community. I think that'll be very important. That gets back to that conversation you and I have off and on, and I see you having a lot of, and I appreciate you having it, classism in the black community and how that manifests, how that's catching up with us even in a moment like this.
Yeah, I think something that the 2020 election cycle is revealing is the level of classism in the black community. As a community, we've always known that. If you went to the right schools, if you had the right job, if you lived in a certain neighborhood, that sort of affected whether you could be considered a leader or someone to even be listened to. And what's happening now is I think you're seeing because of Kamala and who she is, and how she matriculated through the HBCU system and the black sorority system, the black Greek letter society system, you're seeing some of those people back her just because of that. But there are serious issues that she's got with lower and middle class black people in California who have been vocal about this since she was announced as a VP pick, even when she was running for president. And these things go back all the way back to the end of the Civil War, where you've had it was based on colorism. It was based on what part of the country you lived in. And some of those things manifest now. It's not so much colorism, although that's still an issue. But now it's about, did you go to the right HBCU? What city do you live in? Who you connected to? And this election cycle is really going to have to make people who consider themselves a talented STEM, they're going to have to engage with poor and working class people better than they have, because right now a lot of the conversation has been very condescending, and the people who are poor and working class have a stronger voice now thanks to social media than they've ever had, and they're going to have to deal with that. If not, it's going to be an issue when it comes to them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Yeah, that's that grass tops grassroots disconnect, and it's really damaging, like, our black politics or our ability to have like an effective unified black agenda. And it's still there, and we need to talk more about it. Unfortunately, Torin, I'm going to let you go because we went to break, so we're going to talk more about it. I want to next time we bring you on, I want to follow up more on that classism debate, and I'm sure we're going to be talking more on social media. But it's always good to have you, Torin Walker, founder, CEO of Context Media Group. Go to contextmediagroup.com. Check out some of his blogs, his musings there too. Some real good stuff, and just go to social media at Torin Walker. TORRAINE Walker on Twitter. He's highly engaged there, and we'll have him back on. We're going to have him on more regularly here on Reality Check. Hey, thanks so much, brother. Appreciate your time as always.
Always a pleasure, Charles. Good having me on. Thank you.
All right. Take care. We'll be in touch. Okay, let's take a break, and let's keep the phone lines open because they were open just now, and they're still open. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
The time is now to put an end to the chronic incompetence of Donald Trump and his League of Liars. Donald Trump makes a mockery of the institution of the presidency. He's polarized our country, and his dangerous policies must not continue. Joe Biden has the character, empathy, and experience to lead us through these challenging times. He helped lead the nation out of the 2008 financial crisis into the longest period of economic growth in our history, and he can do it again. As president, he will heal divisions and unite us around the shared values of justice. He'll create opportunities for quality education and good-paying jobs, and he'll build on the Affordable Care Act, not tear it down. While Donald Trump thinks coronavirus and climate change are a hoax, Joe Biden already has a coronavirus recovery plan and a strategy to create more jobs while also tackling the climate crisis. Vote for a president who will stand on the right side of history. Vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Paid for by Black PAC and Priorities USA Action. BlackPAC.com and PrioritiesUSAAction.org, which are responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Man, this coronavirus has us all moving differently.
No doubt. Like washing our hands more and social distancing with the crew. I'm always telling people to give me 6 feet. We're here, Grandma.
There's my babies. Good to see you got your mask on.
Wear mask. Stop the spread. For more information, visit www.pa.gov/COVID.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Always Best Care is a great place to work. Flexibility,
leadership, purpose,
great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity,
inclusion, compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Halana, your resident health and wellness coach with tips to help you stay well. Let's talk about eating mindfully. Often we are rushing from moment to moment and we hurry through our eating like it's checking off an item on our to-do list. Each day for each meal, let's commit to doing these 3 simple things to activate our mindful eating experience. Number 1, slow down. Number 2, eat while you're sitting down. And number 3, chew each bite 20 to 30 times. You can do it. Eating mindfully is something we can all do to support our overall health and digestion. Go ahead and try it for your next meal today. Stay well with WURD. Happy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at wordradio.com.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back. We are here on Reality Check. It's the midday, midweek edition. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Let's get to it. Pat out of West Philly is calling in for a Reality Check. Miss Pat, how are you doing?
Good morning, Charles. How are you?
All right. Good morning. Good morning.
Good. I, like yourself, am a little concerned about the debate tonight. I'm actually waiting for the bomb to explode. You know, usually in October, like in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, like 2 weeks before the election, we heard all the stuff about her emails. So I'm kind of concerned about that kind of stuff happening with Kamala. I also know that there's a lot of women, white and African-American, who are on the fence about voting Democratic. So I'm just wondering, you know, what's going to happen tonight. Because, again, like you said, Pence is very skillful. I think he's diabolic, really. I'd rather have, and this is sad to say, Trump as president than Pence, because I think Pence is a little dangerous, in my opinion.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he'll come out, you know, fighting with, you know, and hitting very hard, whether we realize it or not. I've been looking at some footage of him, and he just says whatever he wants to say and, you know, does whatever he wants to do. So that's one of my concerns about the debate tonight. My other concern is that I've been out, you know, I do the census, and a lot of people are so disgusted with the Philadelphia government that they, you know, I don't want to vote. I don't want to do the census. I don't want to do anything. I want the crime to stop. I want children to stop dying. You know, I hear things like fathers talking about not letting their children, you know, work jobs at night because they're scared of them being out in the street at night. So the concerns of Philadelphia, I think, are first and foremost in the minds of a lot of Philadelphians. And I think we need to address this crime issue really big time. And I hope she addresses it during the debate tonight. And thanks for taking my call, Charles. I'd like to hear your feedback.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that. I mean, yeah, those concerns are ongoing. I think people need to walk into this thing or enter this thing as they're watching it, understanding that it's not going to be a cakewalk for, the debate last week was, one, first of all, I don't want people to embrace this narrative that, like, Joe Biden does not have his faculties. Like, he's a sharp dude, and he's a good debater. He's been in the business and the political and policymaking business for a number of years. People are still embracing this mythology around, oh, he has dementia and he doesn't know what he knows what he's doing. And, he's up there in age, but so is Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is clearly, that's what we need to be talking about if you want to talk about dementia and mental health issues and all that. But so I think that it was much more easier for Biden last week. It's not going to be easy for Kamala Harris. And so we just have to understand that and understand the type of person, the type of customer that we're dealing with in VP Mike Pence. So I totally hear you there. And that's that other thing that goes back to that conversation, that other comment you were making, Ms. Pat, about violence in the city and how the city just doesn't feel like the city, there would be elected officials who obviously would clap back at this statement or would say, hey, we are doing a lot of work. Well, people just aren't, once again, there's that disconnect. We just had Terwin Walker on just a few moments ago, and he was like, folks in the grass tops, folks in the so-called, as we've called it over the years, W.E.B. Du Bois coined this term, the talented 10th, the black talented 10th, really need to engage better with the rest of us, or folks who, didn't grow up in a certain community, didn't do the Jack and Jill thing, didn't do the Pan-Hellenic fraternity sorority thing, didn't maybe even go to us HBCU. I didn't go to HBCU. I have a lot of respect and more and more appreciation for HBCUs, but I didn't go. So like, just because you're like black, you're not in a certain community or you're not in a certain network, and so like, okay, I've reached this level of success or attained it, so I'm not going to have a conversation with you. And I think that I think whether people are willing to admit to it or not, in this situation here with the violence in Philadelphia, I think that a little bit of that is there. Not even a little bit, a lot of it, you can make the argument, is there, in terms of how we still see this disconnect, and people still in Philly feeling like, hey, you got people all around us dying, people all around us getting hurt, getting shot, because there's thousands of people in Philly who've been shot, and this is happening on a daily basis, and people don't seem like energetic and urgent around this issue. They're just kind of checking off boxes and kind of making up stuff or working on this as they go along. So, like I said before, it's going to be really interesting to see after we pass this very significant milestone in Philadelphia as far as the violence crisis, what will the tone be like? What is the level of conversation? What will the top issues be in City Council tomorrow? I'm not going to be the only one listening to that. There are going to be people listening in here to WURD, and they're going to be looking, they're going to be saying, okay, what's council going to say? And are they going to wait till they get to, it's all about kind of the optics here. Are they going to wait till they get to the very end of the city council session and then, okay, let's open it up for speeches and remarks, and then people give these eloquent speeches and remarks about, or is it going to happen with the city council president at the very top, saying, hey, you know what, enough is enough already. Within based on however the rules of how these sessions are conducted in the format, we need to address this violence thing. We need to we need to, I've got this resolution, that resolution, or I want to do some kind of special session here, because it's at that level now when you're not even at the end of the year and you've already surpassed the record number of homicides from the previous year. That's an emergency, right? And so that's a disaster. And so like people are wanting to see that. People are wanting to see, okay, well, how much more money, how much more resources can the mayor invest, or what sorts of other ideas are people coming up with? Okay, we understand the city has limited funds and resources and money. Okay, well, based on the resources we do have, are we really leveraging those resources? Are we maximizing it? Are we, like, I have Junior Lee here. He was doing this yesterday, and he's doing this in the Facebook live stream. where he's coming up with these good ideas. This, here we have this urban forest strategic plan. And you know how I was asking Erica Smith earlier, like, okay, hey, you're going to plant the trees. Who are you going to hire to plant the trees? And here's Junior Lee, quoting him, the city government can partner with local landscape companies with grants to hire 16 through 19-year-olds to plant trees throughout the area. That can also curtail violence. Allow the youth to have an honorary plaque by each tree that's planted to give them pride of ownership and contribution to improve their neighborhoods. That's the kind of stuff I'm about. That's low-hanging fruit. That's low-hanging fruit. I repeat, that's low-hanging fruit. But see, people don't think about those things, or they openly or actively dismiss them. Oh no, that's that. Okay, you can have the response plan kind of happening on multiple tracks or paths. Here's one plan where you're like, okay, you know what? The city's short on money and cash and resources, but we know that there's these groups out there that we have to get money to. We know that there's things we have to do to bolster up the Philly Police Department's homicide division so they can solve these homicides. We know that there's things, okay, so we got that going on the other track, but that doesn't slow down on this other track, implementing the types of ideas, the sorts of low-hanging fruit, community engagement, civic engagement ideas. And that's why I was saying it has to be an all hands on deck effort. You can't just expect or put all the onus right on City Hall. Like, I mean, that's not to take responsibility from them. That's just to say, you already see how they're operating now. You already see the cards we're dealt with when it comes to Philadelphia City Hall. So what are some things we could be doing, or what are some things that we could, based on existing resources, that we could encourage City Hall to do in conjunction, in collaboration with us? Because it's our streets and our neighborhoods too. We living in there, or we grew up in these places, and we want to see them get better. So, you do low-hanging fruit stuff like this. This is easy because you already got the city already making an investment in an urban forest strategic plan. So, you're trying to find things for young people to do to keep them less idle and keep them more engaged and keep them out of all the, the nasty business, the violent business. Here you go. That's one aspect of it. So we haven't really truly fully, I am past the point of having gripe sessions or whining sessions about why the violence is happening. I'm now at that stage where I'm like, okay, well, what's your plan? Well, hey, come up with an idea. And no idea is crazy. No idea is fodder for being dismissed. It's like how they used to say in class, like, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Remember the teacher used to say that? It's the same thing with this. I like what Junior Lee is doing. He was doing this yesterday. And these are great ideas. What are your ideas? Let's try to make a better effort here to not just engage in a prolonged day-long wholesale, WURD programming day gripe whine session about how bad the violence is. Now let's try to activate ourselves into figuring out, okay, well, what are some things that the city could be doing, that we as an entire Philadelphia community could be doing to solve this thing, to really truly tackle it. I don't think we've reached that point yet. It's like, it's not even a think thing. I know we haven't reached that point yet, and we could. We have the capacity to do it. We could very well do that. But, we can't be coming on here doing finger pointing and blaming and who didn't do, and, I mean, some of that is necessary, to kind of like help people understand, why things are happening the way they do. But I think that we have to put a limit on that, got to put a cap on that, and then get into a conversation about, okay, well, what are some things that are happening out there in the community that we see that could work? What are some things that are going on that are not working? What kind of relationship do we need to have? I've always said that we got to balance that conversation out, about police violence or police misconduct and the public safety that's needed in the community, because you still need the police in there to work with you to mitigate or reduce or eliminate the violence, right? So there's got to be a better conversation, a better level of interface. Police need to be held accountable, but what's your level of interface and partnership like with the Philadelphia Police Department, or police in any city for that matter? So, and so it's that's where both sides comes in. So, I do believe in that, but I don't believe in police unions running the police department. That's not the way it's supposed to work. Full stop on that. Okay, we work through it together. And period. Okay. Let me take a break. I'm sorry, I got to take a break. And I just looked at the clock. Sorry about that, Troy. Let me take a break, and when we come back, we're going to head into our citizen segment here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
But they've got the experience.
I'm still in shock 3 or 4 years later that we're in this position now. Our democracy is at a pivotal point.
From the top, we don't trust our government. We see the trouble we're in economically. We've got 170,000 Americans dead, and yet this president will do anything he can to make it seem like things are better than they are.
I did more for the black community than anybody with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln.
It's our responsibility. If we don't lead that effort to make things better, we can't ask other people to do it. There is no good reason not to vote.
Right, we need to have individuals that are in office like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They are our best shot to take us forward.
And that's what makes me incredibly hopeful, but we really do have to work for this thing.
To the thousands who did not vote, we need you to show up for our future and for our country.
You cannot sit on the sidelines. You got to get in the game.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Livelihood, the new initiative from WURD Radio, connecting Philadelphians to jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. The EcoWord Environmental Justice Summit, Indigenous Peoples Day, Monday, October 12th from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. In recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day, EcoWord and WURD Radio will host an Environmental Justice Summit to explore topics at the intersection of Black and Indigenous rights, income, and the environment. This day-long multimedia, virtual, and on-air event will bring together artists, thought leaders, and environmental justice advocates for groundbreaking conversations about climate change, land reclamation, water quality, and how it all converges in the Philadelphia region and beyond. It's the EcoWord Environmental Justice Summit, Indigenous Peoples Day, Monday, October 12th from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook. Presented in partnership with Bartram's Garden and from the Source Reporting Collaborative. The EcoWord Environmental Justice Summit is sponsored by PICO and the Alliance for Watershed Education and supported by the Lenfest Institute and the William Penn Foundation.
Enterprise Exterminators, located 4943 Wayne Avenue, specializing in lanternflies, termites, bedbugs, fleas, mice, and roaches. Do-it-yourself kits are available. Call now, 215-849-7070. Tune in this Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. for the Islam Today Show, with a perspective on moral guidance and Islamic principles and values.
Home of the Happy Hour. With Sincerely Sarita. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live at WURDradio.com and on the WURD Radio app. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, we're back at it here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, also WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app, and we are headed into a citizen segment at the top of our noon hour. We do this exercise each Wednesday here on Reality Check. We do this in partnership with the Philadelphia Citizen. Go to philadelphiacitizen.org for more information there. And we have joined us now Jessica Blatt Press, coming back to Reality Check. She did a wonderful piece, came out yesterday, entitled 10 Ways to Fix Our Garbage Mess. There's some really wonderful ideas. And there's a state she talks about, describes how State Representative Jared Solomon, who we've had on this program before, is a state representative over in Northeast Philly, spent an entire workday with the city sanitation crew. All elected officials in Philly should be doing this if they have not done this yet. If all able-bodied or capable elected officials in state and city in Philadelphia, and I'm about to ask Jessica if she's getting a roll call on that. I mean, able-bodied, because it's hard work being a sanitation worker. There are few folks in the elected class of Philadelphia who are in good enough shape to do what Jared Solomon did. My hat goes off to him on this, because maybe if more people did that, they'd be a little bit more urgent and intentional on this issue. But I'll let Jessica talk all about it, because he presented he and this article presents some really good ideas on how we can get a handle on our trash crisis. Jessica, how are you doing? Good to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me. How have you been?
All right, good. I hope you're doing well too. Yeah, it's good to hear it. I'm always good to have people check in after a while, especially as we're going through pandemic. I want to make sure everyone's okay.
Exactly.
You report on how it's a wonderful piece, another wonderful piece. It's and the idea is we should still column, because you always come up with these great pieces at the Philadelphia Citizen. 10 ways to fix our garbage mess, and go to philadelphiacitizen.org. I urge everyone to read it. And you talk about State Representative Jared Solomon working with the city sanitation crew for the entire day. Is he the only one that did that you know of? Is there anyone else that I wasn't even paying attention to see if anyone else is doing that?
It's a great question, and I love your idea to call on all of our elected representatives to spend a day out there, because basically what happened was Jared reached out to us and he said, and Jared's great, he's so hands-on, he's always doing things like this, not just for publicity, but to really make a difference. He grew up in the neighborhood where he serves, and he cares about it so deeply. So he reached out and he said, I spent a day out there and I learned so much, and I think there's so much more, to learn, and so much more we can do. And part of what was great was he reached out to Terrell Hagler, who many people in the city know as your fave trash man. Terrell is a sanitation worker who started this Instagram account that now has 21,000 followers. He raised $32,000 to get protective equipment to his fellow sanitation workers. And he's really, I think, igniting a huge spark under the state of affairs in our sanitation department. And he really inspired and helped Jared through this day. So after talking to Jared for a little bit, I then connected with Terrell and several others about things, our city can be doing to help our trash problem, because we know we got a dirty city, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Maybe I'm kind of pitching you, kind of soft pitching you here, Jessica. Let's do that. I mean, maybe check in with the different elected offices. I understand there's a few elected officials out there. They might be up in age. They might have certain ailments that prevent them from being out there, because it's hard work. It's very hard work. But I've seen it. I've been involved in that. I've done that too, in the distant past. But there are people who are in enough shape where they could do it, and so I would love to kind of get a roll call, a tally, because I think that's very revealing. I think it's telling, and I celebrate State Representative Solomon for doing it. Everyone should, so they can understand what's up.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's physically strenuous. It's also dangerous. I mean, on his day out there, and this is what these teams face every day, he was dealing with IV drips and glass and torn bags and soiled diapers.
Wow.
And the other point that Terrell makes and Jared makes is a lot of thinking really goes into the work. People laugh or are condescending, but there's actually a lot of strategizing and partnering and teamwork. It's not an easy job on any level. And so one silver lining of Terrell's work is that people are really coming out to support their sanitation workers, to leave them cold water, to leave them some food, to say thank you. And that, morale is up, and that's good. But Jared's point was we got to capitalize on this moment and really start doing things. And one of the first ideas he had was simply to hold a forum, invite more people into the conversation. He thinks that we got to start by listening to our city sanitation workers, people like Terrell and the many others out there. And then he wants to hear from citizens, from new voices, not just the same old, same old. He wants to hear from think tanks in Philly and elsewhere. And it's funny, I talked about this idea with Terrell, and he was like, I love that. Let's do a public forum. I'll MC it. Let's get everyone together, invite the mayor. And so there's a lot of enthusiasm around this idea of, let's talk. Let's just talk.
Right.
Let's start the conversation. I think that's so valuable.
Yeah. How do we, before we get into some of those ideas, because some wonderful ideas that you listed in here, out of these 10 ways to tackle the garbage crisis. Is that still a problem, Jessica, you think, where we're thinking about the trash problem in Philly as a crisis? People, when you mention the word trash, I mean, it sort of evokes something somewhat comical. And people are thinking, why are we having a serious conversation around trash Because people take their trash for granted. Trash is something that's discarded. It's not something you should think about, right? And so is that a big part of the problem, where people, as much of a trash problem, or as much of a problem as trash has been in Philly for so long, is that a big part of the problem, where it's just the psyche, the mindset around trash, and being able to comprehend it or grasp it as a crisis?
Yeah, I think it is, because I think people, exactly like you said, people don't think about it, but we have to. We have to think about putting our trash out thoughtfully. We have to bring our cardboard in when it's raining so it doesn't get so wet and heavy for these teams to deal with. We have to, put things in the right place, recycle appropriately, and really be smart about it. And that's another thing. Your fave trash man has an Instagram account where he puts these tips up that are so easy to do, because he shows a picture of, he doesn't name anyone, but he'll show how someone has left their wood scraps out in a total mess, and why that's such a nightmare and slows things down. So it's things we might not mean to do maliciously, or or might think we're being lazy about, but a little bit of effort would go so far. And the truth is, a lot of us are spending more time at home now, so we're just making more trash. So we really have to pay more attention to it if we want to sort of all be in this together.
Yeah. One of the ideas here you talk about, and you describe what former New York City mayor, the first black mayor of New York City, David Dinkins, did in the 90s there. He launched a green development initiative. It was probably one of the first. He was probably ahead of his time a little bit. It was one of the first for a major city like New York, and he merged the issue of trash, because New York had a really bad trash problem. And a lot of people think, oh, that was like Rudy Giuliani cleaned up the trash. Well, no, people like David Dinkins were also played a big role in this, but he merged trash and sanitation with economic development. Explain how that happened.
Yeah, it was so smart, and I lived in New York at the time, and I wish he got more, attention for this, because, he came up with this initiative, and what he did was realize, okay, not only do we have to clean up our streets, but if we find value in some of the stuff we're collecting from our streets, that could be an economic driver. We could, create more jobs. We could, create products. So for example, paper was a big thing they wanted to get off the streets there, and so they partnered with this Australia-based company called Pratt, and Pratt created this facility on Staten Island that took paper basically and converted it into cardboard. And so basically they took something that was of no value and created something of value, which created, a whole little economic driver there. And it was just like an interesting way to think about something that for so long people were like, it's too gross, like we can't deal with it, or like, oh, we don't want to deal with the bureaucracy of New York City. But when they got an aggressive business partner, a smart, aggressive business partner to say, no, we can do this, it's not too dirty, we can make it work, and we can find value in it, and fine, every government agency has bureaucracy, we'll deal with it. And they did it, and it's been hugely successful. So I think there's a way to think about trash as a driver of jobs and economic growth, which is really cool. And shout out to Dinkins, because it's not an initiative that gets much coverage, but it should. It was done in the 90s before all of this was like trendy,
Yeah. Also, one of the other, build a state-of-the-art recovery facility. That's something Philly doesn't have, and so how could we do that?
Right. Well, we should, because what's cool is this is it's different than this, facility that focuses just on paper. This is a sorting facility. It's actually gorgeous. You don't think of the word gorgeous when you think about trash, but it's on the waterfront in Brooklyn, and it's a sorting facility so that you could say, okay, where's the, glass or metal or other products that we can do something with, and once again, it creates jobs. And actually, that ties into this other idea of New York City uses their rivers. They have these huge barges to transport, let's say, paper from the Bronx, down to Staten Island. Well, we have rivers too, and we have facilities that can, we have, industrial spaces, and we have real estate, so we can take better advantage of our rivers, because what's nice about that is it gets some of that traffic off of the streets. So, I talked to this expert at Cornell, this, urban policy and architecture expert, and he was like, we got to reclaim our rivers. It's just a smart use of the natural resources we have. And I thought that was so interesting. I never would have thought about like using a barge to transport trash.
Yeah, no, I would have never thought about that too. I mean, but do we worry about, the potential environmental hazards or risk of that? Because I would assume like to do something like that, the Delaware River would be that probably that ready river source or water source to it's big enough, it's large enough, it can sort of absorb that kind of traffic stress. I don't see that probably happening along the Schuylkill, right?
Right.
And in terms of this how unsightly that might seem, but are we thinking about things like that? Do we worry about that?
I say we tap into all the brilliant minds we have who are working on green development here and sustainability here. There's got to be. I mean, there's so much brilliance in this city. I bet someone can come up with a genius solution to avoid that. That's just my guess. I have such reverence for people who are able to think about that.
Right. I mean, and could we take that trash too, and could we transform it into? I mean, we've seen that technology. The technology is there. Transform that into energy. I mean, the city is saying, it wants to be cleaner and greener by a certain point, and net zero carbon. So maybe trash. That's that new energy source. I mean, is that something that's possible? Have we seen that? Where have we seen that taking place? What other cities?
That's a great question. I would have to look into that, but it's interesting because the West Coast is in many ways a pioneer on this kind of stuff, and Seattle is a city that Terrell really admires because they do a few things that he thinks is great. One is their trucks have these automated arms that lift and dump the citizens' trash, so that sanitation workers don't have to be throwing it and subject themselves to the trash juice and to the dangerous, hazardous materials that are, in people's trash. So they have these trucks that have automated arms, and they also have city-issued roll carts. So they're the standard trash and recycling bins that fit perfectly with these trucks. Trucks lift them, dump them, and then they go. So Seattle is definitely a city to watch. He also likes that sanitation workers there can sort of issue, not quite citations, but these tags for customers who kind of need reminders about how to set out their garbage and their recycling. So that empowers sanitation workers, which is important.
Right. I think I remember seeing something. Sweden is a place where they do a lot of waste of energy. They got like 40 waste of energy power plants all over the country in Sweden, powering like different cities and stuff. Yeah. So it's something to look into, but making sure how to, you want to make sure that you also that can create more that could potentially create more carbon from, obviously the smokestacks, the emissions. But then there's a way, like I was watching, what's the guy? The actor, he did the Netflix series, Zac Efron. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the Netflix series yet. Yeah, I forget the name of it. I was just watching it not too long ago.
Down to Earth, right?
Right, Down to Earth. It was, and he was in Iceland, and in Iceland they've developed they already are like they're repurposing. They're taking the carbon emissions and instead of it going into the air, they've created technology and whole plants where they regenerate the carbon into actual energy that fuels the island. He went there and they did the whole walkthrough. It's a wonderful thing, and you're like, that's what we need to be doing, because Iceland was relying for so long up until the mid '70s on imported gas, on getting its fuel, its gas from other sources, instead of and they were like, this is unsustainable. We can't keep relying, and it's also not healthy for the environment. So now they're going total clean energy. And so I think that's just wonderful, and Philly could be doing that too. You embrace automation and empower sanitation workers. Those seem to be, Jessica, you can't make the argument that over time those could seem to those two imperatives or two goals could kind of clash with one another, because the more you start talking about automation, that could actually displace sanitation workers. So how do we balance that?
I think we balance it by saying, okay, we need the safest, cleanest, most high-tech trucks, but we still need humans working on them and ensuring everything goes smoothly. It's not that the arms replace, the workers in this case. I totally hear you. We don't want Robot Nation, but in this case, it's just a compliment to the amazing work they do. And I do know that, I know we're going to get to this idea further down the list of following Terrell on Your Fave Trash Man. One thing I want to mention, because it's time sensitive, in addition to all, he's like the ultimate Philly hero, because he saw a problem, he stepped up, he did something about it. He's raised all this money. He's also doing a food drive through his church, Voice of Praise Worldwide Ministries. And this Saturday, they're collecting food at the church from 1 to 6. It's 3509 Old York Road. And then on Sunday, the 10th, they're going to distribute items to frontline workers from 11 to 3. And then after that, after 3 o'clock, anyone else can come, and they'll give away everything until it's all gone. But I mean, how great is that? How hopeful is that? You know, we've seen during the pandemic, which has been so hard, we've seen so many people really step up and do what they can, and then just go out of their circle of expertise. So you have Terrell, who's, you know, his expertise is trash, but he's also just thinking about community and making the city better. And I just have to commend him, because I just think that's so awesome and inspiring. So follow him on Instagram. You'll get great tips on how to put your trash out better, how to support our city sanitation workers, and just tips on making our city cleaner.
Yeah. You know, you also talk about the need for political buy-in, and that takes a long time. But the trash crisis in Philly's been an ongoing thing. I mean, since as long as I can remember, just growing up in Philly, it's always been an issue and a problem. I mean, so we still don't have that kind of political buy-in we need. I mean, how do we achieve that, where people understand that this is urgent? Like, for example, I keep reminding people, like, the more you clean the city, the less violence you'll have. Full stop. And so, you know, the science, the evidence is plentiful on that. The data speaks to that. But, you know, it's like people are still dismissing. I think, you know, they're you know, the elected officials are still fielding multiple calls, like Representative Solomon was, from their constituents complaining about trash. But there's still, you know, people still not making that connection.
I know,
still,
but
it's like there's still that disconnect. Yeah.
I think it's going to change, and I think it starts with, you know, the suggestions that Jared and Terrell and people like them have, and I do think it all comes back to the very first idea Jared came to us with, which is, which is let's listen to people, let's have a forum. Maybe you can do that, you know, just have people call in with their ideas, and let's just keep this moving in the right direction, because I do feel like, as weird as it sounds to say, there's some real, like, excitement around trash and some real hope, and so let's fuel that and keep it going and keep the conversation positive and really focus on change. I think now could be the time that we see some real change happening, because you're right, it's been going on for too long, enough already. And that's sort of the note Representative Jared Solomon left me on, which is like, we don't have to have this chip on our shoulder. Philly, like, embraces the chip on its shoulder, but we don't have to be gross. We do not have to be a disgusting city. We can be clean. You know, we can make a change. We don't have to accept the status quo. So that's I think, an important reminder.
Yeah. Jessica Blatt-Press is a regular contributor at the Philadelphia Citizen, staff contributor for the Philadelphia Citizen. Go to philadelphiacitizen.org, and she regularly writes this Ideas We Should Still column and other columns there at the Philadelphia Citizen. Great column. You should read this. Just came out yesterday, just dropped. Go to philadelphiacitizen.org. 10 ways to fix our garbage mess. State Representative Jared Solomon spent a day picking up city trash to understand just how bad Philly is at waste. Here's some ways to do better. And you know what? We need to follow up. We need to get Representative Solomon back on here. So I'm making a mental note. I'm making an on-air mental note, and also kind of letting our intrepid Troy Wilmore know, hey, let's reach out to State Representative Solomon and get him back on so we can talk about this very thing. And maybe we can nudge. We can nudge the other elected officials to get out there and spend the day with our sanitation workers, because they're definitely been going through it during pandemic, and they need that kind of support. But they need people to understand how significant and critical this role is that they play. Jessica, thanks for your time. Thanks for this piece. I really appreciate it. I know a lot of other people do too.
Keep up the awesome work. It's always great to talk to you, Charles.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Take care. Be safe. All right. Let's take a break, and when we come back on the other side, we go back to election security. We're going to get our in-house election security expert, our election security advocate, Jennifer Cohn, is coming up next. She's here every week. Always good to have her tell us about the latest in election security, threats we need to look out for, threats to our vote we need to look out for as we're headed closer and closer to November 3rd. So she's scheduled to join us next here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Oh, also, don't forget, we've got the big EcoWord Summit. We've got coming up this Monday, October 12th. we got the day-long EcoWord Environmental Justice Summit. So I had mentioned that earlier in the program. I need to remind people that this is an important day. This Monday, October 12th. Forget about that other day, you know, with that, like, you know, fake explorer, that fake genocidal explorer everybody, you know, wants to keep putting up statues for. No, we have EcoWord Environmental Justice Summit, and we are doing this in recognition of what is now being called Indigenous Peoples Day, and we're going to explore various topics at the intersection of Black and Indigenous. You know, Indigenous now is the new term for our Native American brothers and sisters, but Black and Indigenous rights, income, and the environment. So it's going to be a multimedia virtual event. We got Majora Carter, Ramia Cody, Sherelle Barber, Marie Sampson from the Source Reporting Collaborative, the Oro family, a lot of activists, artists, elected leaders will be on, other thought leaders. So you don't want to miss this opportunity as well, because you have an opportunity to join or renew your onWURD membership today to receive your free copy of this month's #BlackWords Book Club selection. And that selection is A Terrible Thing to Waste, Environmental Racism and Its Assault on the American Mind by Harriet Washington. So go to wordradio.com today, wordradio.com/forward, to join or renew your onWURD membership today. And the EcoWord Environmental Justice Summit being produced in collaboration with Bartram's Garden and from the Source Reporting Collaborative. It's also being supported by PICO, the Watershed Education Alliance, the Linfest Institute, and the William Penn Foundation. So be sure to tune in this Monday starting at 10 a.m. That's at the top of the reality check hour. That's when we start, and we go all the way into the evening, into 9 p.m. I'll also be guest hosting, doing some more EcoWord conversation later on that evening. So you're going to hear me off and on throughout the day, and we're going to end it on a good note, a good, powerful, and hopefully inspirational, motivational note later on that day. To learn more, visit wordradio.com or ecoword.com. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, Jenny Cohn's coming up next here on Reality Check. Stay tuned.
To African Americans, what do you have to lose?
More than we could have ever imagined. Trump's policies make Black people less safe, and his downplaying of coronavirus cost Black lives. It's time to elect someone who cares about us. Joe Biden. Joe will fight racism and injustice everywhere. He'll expand Obamacare and rebuild our economy so it works for all of us. Request a ballot now. Make a plan to vote. Our lives depend on it.
Paid for by Ask Me People, which is responsible for the content of this ad. AskMePeople.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Philadelphia, old, young, and all in between. We've got to get out and rock the vote in this election. We have the power to make a difference, but we cannot make that difference without your vote. Vote by mail or vote in person. Our vote is the voice that will save our lives. This message is sponsored by the Leon H. Sullivan Charitable Trust.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour work day, kind of work people more than 8 hours without overtime, kind of work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. We're on 96.1 FM, 900 AM in Philly proper, Greater Philly, Delaware Valley, of course, but beyond, throughout the nation, throughout the world. Many of you listening in, tuning in at our live stream at WURDradio.com. WURD TV as well, Facebook.com/4WURD and YouTube.com/onWURD. Many of you watching us there across the nation, across the world, and on our WURD app as well. We've got Jenny Cohn on with us. She's on with us every week, our election security contributor here on Reality Check on WURD. Go to @JennyCohn, COHN1 on Twitter. She's highly engaged and highly informative as well. You want to keep track of what's happening in the election security space, how secure or insecure is our election 2020. So she's the person to go to for that, and she joins us here on Reality Check at this time every Wednesday. Jenny, okay, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
All right, good. We can hear you just loud and clear and fine. Thank you for this. So, yeah, you've been focused quite a bit on Georgia. Georgia's on our mind. You got like what could be potentially key Senate races, 2 Senate seats there in Georgia, so that could determine the balance of power in the U.S. Senate, because people are forgetting that we got a big Senate race, stacks of Senate races in addition to the presidential race. But the voter suppression there, they're just taking it to new kinds of, new kinds of lengths. And so talk about that. There's some issues that have been unfolding as of recent. Talk about what's happening in Georgia right now.
So thank you. So Georgia was the first state to deploy touchscreen voting machines statewide in 2002, and those machines were very controversial because they were paperless, which meant they could not be audited or recounted. They finally got a court order saying they were unconstitutional, and some of the concerned voters got an order in 2019. The state replaced them with a new controversial system. But on top of that, so there has been ongoing litigation. In the middle of all of this, about 3 or 4 days ago, so we're looking less than 2 weeks before early voting begins, an email went around to state election officials saying that there was a problem with the database or with the software, and that they were going to have to replace, originally they said the database, then they said the software in all voting machines in the entire state.
Wow.
So right before an election, we're talking, it was about 11 days before, they're going to be delivering brand new, untested, not federally certified software that no one's really looked at just before an election. And it's alarming on its face. It also reminded me too much of what happened in 2002 before that election, where, again, those were auditable paperless machines, and that was the election where Georgia really started to shift from blue to red. They won very unexpectedly, defying by quite a bit the pre-polling. They won a Senate seat and a governorship, and the Senate seat helped give the balance of power to the Republicans that year in the U.S. Congress. And then afterwards, a whistleblower from the vendor came forward and told media that the president of the company, at the time that company was Diebold Election Systems, had personally supervised the installation of uncertified software on all of the voting machines in some of the counties. I believe they were in the Democratic-leaning counties. Yeah. And nothing was ever really done about that. And so now it's actually happening, I guess, more in plain sight. I mean, the court is aware that they're doing it, but hasn't done anything. And they're installing. You can make an argument. I believe it is probably illegal, but until a court rules that, it's going to be debated whether it's illegal or not. What Georgia is saying, even though Georgia law, I believe, requires that the software be federally certified, their interpretation of the law is that it requires federal certification. It says that you can't buy voting equipment unless it's been federally certified.
Mm-hmm.
But they're saying that that only applies to the pre-purchase period, that afterwards they can do whatever they want to it, and it doesn't require certification, which I think is a huge strain and unlikely to be accepted by a court, but it hasn't been ruled on. And it's really almost getting to the point where it's too late, which is a shame. I think this judge is well-intended, and the judge in this case is well-intended. She's the one who also ordered that they had to have backup paper poll books for their check-in computers that keep crashing.
Right. But it's just a timing issue right now. It sounds like Georgia's perfected electronic or digital voter suppression.
It seems that way, and running out the clock too on these things.
Yeah. I mean, have we seen instances like that happening in other states?
Not to this extent. I mean, the uncertified software is a big deal. So yes. Oh, okay. Yes. In California in 2004, a whistleblower, a paralegal at a law firm, at a big law firm, was typing up documents, and their client was Diebold Election Systems, which was Georgia's former vendor, not its current one, and saw that they were installing uncertified illegal software throughout California or in some of the large counties, and it led to a criminal investigation that was dismissed only because they got a huge settlement from the vendor. I don't know how much money, but it was a lot. And California, decertified some of the machines. It was a really, really big deal, and the media there did a really good job with it too. They were all over it. In Georgia, you don't have as good of a local media by any means, and we have a corrupt, corrupt Secretary of State. So in California, it was the Secretary of State who I don't think he initiated it, actually. It was citizens. Beverly Harris, an activist and author, but they joined in. In Georgia, they're pretty much complicit with it. They're good with it. They're thanking the vendor for this, and thanking. So it is a big deal to put uncertified software into voting machines, and it's treated as such in other places than Georgia. But this is Georgia, and now the governor's erecting a big fence around his home, like a 10-foot high fence. I don't know what it is he's anticipating. I'm not it doesn't have to be about the election, I guess, but it seems to me odd timing.
People, maybe he's like, he's afraid of what might happen, how some people out there might react, not all people, but some people out there might react once they kind of realize if things go south or things don't go the way they intended, and there's a direct linkage or there's direct evidence showing that, hey, you know what, these votes ended up not being counted because of this software update or these shenanigans by by Georgia state officials. They're worried about their ugliness kind of catching up with them, but it's just, a sad state of affairs. The other, what you were doing, Jenny, recently, I know you did this with your colleague, and I wanted to have, we can't play it as radio, we can't play it as far as video, and I'm sure we can't do this right now in kind of the Skype.
Well, unsuppress the vote.
Unsuppress the vote. It's a wonderful little, clever film that you put together with your colleague, Kate Rosenberg. What are those tips in there about how to unsuppress the vote? And people should go to @JennyCone1 to watch it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's also, it's best to watch it probably on my Twitter feed, but I also have it on my YouTube channel, which is Voting Machine Corruption Exposed, long Twitter channel. It has a lot of the tips that I've been talking about on my tip card. One of the ones that I try to emphasize is that if you vote in person, and this is, it says try to vote with a hand-marked paper ballot. So you should really call your county first and find out if they will let you do that if you're trying to debate between vote by mail or voting in person.
Yeah.
If you can't vote with a hand-marked paper ballot, pen and paper at the polls, I would avoid touch screens and vote by mail. If you still want to vote in person, however, and you have no choice but to use a touch screen in person, you really need to bring your completed sample ballot with you, and this is in the video. You can usually get it on your own county election website, but if not, you can go to ballotpedia.org and bring your completed sample ballot with you to use to compare against the paper record of voter intent that's generated by these touchscreen voting machines, because experts don't consider them reliable, primarily because studies have long shown that voters don't look at them, and a recent study from the University of Michigan showed that 93% of inaccuracies on these printouts go unnoticed by voters. This is the type of system, by the way, that Georgia has now. And so even instructing voters at the polls to make sure to verify your selections did not significantly increase that ability to detect inaccuracies. It starts out at 7% ability, which is really bad. So 93% unnoticed. It did not go up significantly. The only thing that made it go up significantly was using a pre-filled slate or completed sample ballot to compare against the races. And this is in part probably primarily due to down ballot races, which would include, frankly, even races for the Senate. Just voters the further down the ticket you go, the less likely you are to notice, especially if they have been deleted from the ballot entirely. And even if they're flipped, you may be unlikely to notice it because frequently they don't put party affiliation on these paper records. So unless you have memorized the party affiliation and the name of whoever it was you voted for, you are unlikely to notice a change. And even if you do notice a change, you can't prove that it was the machine as opposed to your own error. So in any event, bring your completed sample ballot if you vote in person, and then if you have to use a touch screen, use it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's in the video, but there are lots of other tips that about where to check your voter registration, and that Lyft and Uber are offering free rides in sun cities throughout the U.S. And what else is in there? It talks about making sure to sign the envelope. If you're voting absentee, making sure to sign the envelope, not the ballot, but the envelope, and making sure to use the envelope that's provided and all that kind of stuff. But it's fun, and it has fun music, and Kate Rosenberg's a really great producer. And she was already doing this, and I gave her some input, and she incorporated a lot of my suggestions. And so
nice. No, it's very good. You go to Jenny. I just retweeted it just now, so you can go to @Ellison Report at Jenny Cohn 1. Jen, I want to ask you. So just the I think it was yesterday. You had different federal election security experts and authorities saying that they're confident in our election security, that they, quoting William Evanina, he's the director of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center, he said, quote, the election system remains resilient. And to be clear, it would be very difficult for adversaries to interfere with or manipulate voting results at scale. So that's Evanina. And also Chris Krebs, who's the director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, he's like, quote, I'm here to tell you that my confidence in the security of your vote has never been higher. And they're saying that, they've made a lot of effort towards protecting our election security from foreign adversaries. There's questions still for me in terms of like domestic hacking, domestic terrorist groups that want to see a certain outcome in this election. So, obviously no conversation there. But I want to get your thoughts on that, where you have in the federal government, but in the meantime, Department of Homeland Security is putting out these warnings about like high levels of foreign interference. So wanted to see what you're thinking and as far as like how the federal government is pivoting and adapting to this.
Yeah, I did a long thread in response to that because ultimately they didn't really tell us that much. And that's a problem for several reasons. But number one, even if, let's just say that they had managed to completely secure this election, in order to have a peaceful transition of power, especially when the electorate has so many questions now about the security of our elections, given what happened in 2016, in order to have that peaceful transition of power, it really helps to have transparency about the election system, which means not just confidence that things will go well, but confidence by the electorate that they would be told if things did not go well.
Yeah.
And I have not seen the types of strides made toward transparency that I had hoped to see between 2016 and now. In fact, really not at all. We only learned recently because of Bob Woodward's book, which just dropped, I think, a few weeks ago, that malware was actually installed into Florida counties. And that's unacceptable. Why was that still classified information?
Right.
We only learned the name of one of the Florida counties because of Bob Woodward. Why was that still classified? We never found the names we were never told the names of the election service providers that were apparently breached, according to the report that Reality Winner, the veteran and contractor, young veteran and contractor, who's still in prison, by the way, that she leaked to the public to try to warn the public. We never, we were led to believe that Russia was not in a position to do anything with vote tallies in 2016, that the only concern was voter registration systems, which is a significant concern in and of itself, but we learned only because of David Scheimer's book, Rigged, which came out, I don't know when it came out, I discovered it about a month ago or 2 months ago, that Russian actors really were in a position to change vote tallies in 2016, at least in some places. And this is very concerning. We also had the former director of the FBI, James Comey, testify falsely to the public that we didn't have to worry about changing of vote tallies because voting machines supposedly never connect to the internet, which election security experts unanimously say was at best misleading because all voting machines get input from centralized computers called election management systems that often connect to the internet or that receive updates from the internet. So an air gap is not foolproof. And not only that, some of the precinct ballot scanners in swing states in 2016, Florida and Wisconsin, connected both the scanners and the county central tabulators, which aggregate precinct totals. So it's a big deal. They connected to the internet. So either he was deliberately misleading the public or he didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
Right.
Which is very reassuring if we're talking about wanting public confidence in elections and a peaceful transition of power. And I think what our government, I would hope, would do is it needs to have a reckoning for the lack of transparency around the 2016 election and rectify that so that we can have confidence that they will tell us what's going on, what if something goes wrong in 2020. I mean, for example, Florida election officials signed non-disclosure agreements about the breaches that occurred there. How is that acceptable? If you want a peaceful transition of power, you have to let the public in on what's going on with the election system because it will leak out in dribs and drabs. And as it stands, we do not have the kind of transparency that you would ideally have to achieve a peaceful transition. I certainly hope there's a peaceful transition anyway. I would be the last person to call for, violent protest, maybe peaceful protest if things look awry. But it's a very scary situation that the government really has put us into.
Yeah, it really is. Really is. Jennifer Cohn is a long time and leading election security advocate and an expert election security lawyer, and it's we're very privileged to have her each week here on Reality Check. Go to @JennyCohn1, @JennyCohn1 on Twitter. She's highly engaged there, and protectourvotes.com for more information and also to get tips on how you as a voter can navigate this very contentious election cycle that we're in right now. Jenny, this is very useful information. Thanks for your insights as always. We'll see you next week.
Great, thank you. See you then.
All right, take care.
Have a good week.
You too. All right, be safe out there. Okay, let's take a break, and let's do this. Let's take a break, and then when we come back on the other side, we'll take the phone lines. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
But they've got the experience.
I'm still in shock 3 or 4 years later that we're in this position now. Our democracy is at a pivotal point.
From the top, we don't trust our government. We see the trouble we're in economically. We've got 170,000 Americans dead, and yet this president will do anything he can to make it seem like things are better than they are.
I did more for the black community than anybody with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln.
It's our responsibility. If we don't lead that effort to make things better, we can't ask other people to do it. There is no good reason not to vote.
Right, we need to have individuals that are in office like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They are our best shot to take us forward.
And that's what makes me incredibly hopeful, but we really do have to work for this thing.
To the thousands who did not vote, we need you to show up for our future and for our country.
You cannot sit on the sidelines. You got to get in the game.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Keystone First VIP Choice HMO SNP Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan has a 4 out of 5 star rating and is one of the highest rated Medicare plans in the region. Keystone First VIP Choice and you are better together. If you live in Philadelphia, Bucks, Chester, Montgomery, or Delaware County, and you have both Medicare and Medicaid, choose the Medicare plan that is working to help you get better care. Enjoy extra benefits at no cost to you with Keystone First VIP Choice. You get benefits like dental, vision, and transportation to and from your medical appointments. They also cover a fitness membership to a gym of your choice. $150 toward over-the-counter pharmacy items. There's no copay for doctor's visits. They offer a large provider network, a great prescription plan, dental coverage, and even eyeglasses. Plus, you don't have to wait for open enrollment. You can change your coverage every quarter. Keystone First VIP Choice. The name you trust, the service you deserve. Call Keystone First VIP Choice today at 1-877-686-1760 or visit KeystoneFirstVIPChoice.com.
Hello, my name is Esteban Vera. I'm a proud union member and business manager of Labor's Local 57 in Philadelphia. I'd first like to thank every essential worker, union member that's working in the front lines day in and day out to keep us all Americans safe. Thank you so much. Now more than ever, it's so important that we get out to vote and make sure that we're registered to vote, that we get candidates in office that care about all Americans, not just corporations. We cannot let the last 4 years repeat itself. Our country cannot take no more. Our people cannot take no more. I beg everyone and plead to please get out to register to vote. Our lives, our children's lives, and our economy depends on it.
Don't forget to tune into Labor's Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. on WURD, WURD.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back. Phone lines are open 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are indeed open. Phone lines are indeed open. Some recent polling that is starting to show up as far as the national race, the national presidential race is concerned. 538 putting out a national polling average showing Joe Biden leading Donald Trump by 9.3 percentage points, pulling far ahead. That had been stable. That had been pretty much at 6-7 percentage points. That was the standard for quite a while with Biden, and now that lead has expanded according to 538.com, their national polling average. They have other averages by state. He is leading by 6.4% on average when you average the polls in Pennsylvania, 6.4% lead in Pennsylvania on average, 7.6% lead in Michigan, also a 7.1% lead in Wisconsin. That's Joe Biden leading Trump. Also leading in Arizona. Trump won Arizona in 2016, 4.5% lead in Arizona, a very slim 3.7% lead in Florida. And does a lot of work, a lot of Republican and also Colombian government work on the Latino vote down there. I was just hearing about that. The Colombian government, the government of Colombia, is controlled by, the far right party down there. They want Trump to win. They've been working very hard on social media manipulation on the Latino vote with a specific focus on Latino voters, Cuban voters, in Florida. But Biden ahead by a slim 3.7 percentage points. That's pretty much margin of error in Florida, and 2.3% in North Carolina. At one point, that would have been unheard of to have a Democratic presidential candidate ahead in a poll in a place like, or that ahead in a poll in, well, not since like Barack Obama, right? In North Carolina, but you do have that right now. That's the averages coming out from 538. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Let me go to Prince out of Schuylkill calling in for a reality check. Prince.
Hey, man, how are you today?
Hey, what's happening?
Hey, let me ask you a question. We talked about the average age of the poll worker was about 60. So I would say the average age of a minister that's part of that coalition or the black clergy is about 62 to 68. And so why haven't they passed the baton yet? Why are they still on the news talking about they're going to try to fix this killing, this shooting, this crime problem in Philadelphia when they are out of, I'm not saying they're out of touch. I'm just saying that there's a huge distance between what they want to fix and what they're capable of fixing. And I think it embarrasses us when they get on there and say that they're going to have a plan to fix this, and then come the weekend we got 12 more deaths or 30 more shootings. And so what's the point? Like, why are they gathering and not gathering with the certain people in those communities that can help them fix this problem and stop, all this Zoom, this is ineffective communications when you keep telling people to zoom in because the people doing the killing ain't zooming in. And so, you just have to explain that to me because we keep having these surrogates talking about fixing the problem. Now, I don't care if they get upset. I'm not here to get them upset. I'm here to say that there's a distance between the people trying to solve the problem and the people committing the problem. So we need to find a common ground when we pass the baton to people that can go on the street and actually stop killings. I mean, if we can have a moratorium on killing until next year or something like that, it'd be great. But somebody has to be out there to put that in place. And I don't think these folks are the ones. So it's startling to me that this kind of we're putting this disposition to keep getting services from folks that have not serviced us already.
I think you touched on something. I think you're right. I think it's a combination. It's a mix, Prince, of baton passing and but also collaboration. Maybe kind of the elders taking a bit of a seat here to serve as in some kind of respects as advisors, as respected advisors in the community, and excelling at what they excel at, right? And sort of us recognizing, okay, they have a certain skill set that might be still useful in this time, in this day and age, but we need you to pass the baton and also find. I mean, this has been an ongoing kind of problem here where people are starting all these efforts and initiatives and they're not carving out leadership roles for young people.
Right.
I mean, and I've caught people on it. I'm like, they say, oh, I've created this brand new committee or initiative or commission. Oh, do you have like a young, when I mean young people, like, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, oh, is a young person sitting on that committee? Oh, no.
Right.
Come on, it's like, you're defeating the purpose.
Have you not valued the citizens of this city in order to incorporate them? I mean, you do it in the top 40 young people or the top 50 young people that are aspiring. But at the end of the day, this is crucial right here. I mean, folks are losing people, 21-year-olds and 17-year-olds getting shot at the corner store or sitting there. This assassin-style situation requires you to not be as comfortable handling us and to get it to the people who can handle the situation so we can stop this killing so we don't reach 400. And I'll hang up and I'll listen.
No, I think you're right, Prince. I mean, and so that's where we have to kind of go, where we have to be very different. A lot of what I'm seeing in terms of the response to this gun crisis, and there's some good points that Raphael Suleiman makes on the Facebook live stream, on our WURD TV Facebook live stream, about, like kind of where the collective head of city leaders is at right now. And so, and he's saying that, like, our city council does not have people with the right resumes before they assumed office to deal with the problem. Check out who is on the city council in cities like DC and Boston. Many of them are very well educated before they enter politics. Many of them are Black, Asian, or Hispanic. Since you are political strategists, might be interested in looking up who these people happen to be. Philly is badly mismanaged at this point. This is why the city is having so many problems. And he's like, his solution is we need to hire like a renowned urban sociologist like Dr. William Julius Wilson to assist the city government in the formulation of social policy to help solve the problem. I mean, I think that you do need, that's one of the things I don't see is like kind of a unified think tank or a black think tank even in the city of Philadelphia to really think this problem out and think it through more deliberately and intentionally. I've seen nothing like that. I do see like a lot of leaning on or reliance on, you know, these elite schools and universities that we have, but they're very, you know, they're only helpful to an extent, and they're also dominated by white intellectuals and who are just kind of looking at us. I mean, in a lot of respects, like, yeah, they just like collecting data and looking at us like lab rats. And it's all about, well, how do we make the city much better and more efficient so we can start bringing in another population of people, just generally speaking. So, I mean, where's Philadelphia's black think tank to tackle this type of problem, to help curate these conversations and then translate the conversations into something that's workable, into a workable plan? Nothing like that in Philly right now. Nothing like that. And, you know, that's going to have to happen. You're going to need something like that. I mean, to Raphael Suleiman's points, he's making some excellent points here. Once again, low-hanging fruit. Anyway, I mean, WURD is kind of that open community citizen think tank in many respects, but you're going to need something a lot more. I mean, you know, that's where you would think like a university like Cheney at HBCU would be that kind of think tank. But, you know, look at where Cheney at right now. I'm just kind of thinking like starting to think outside the box and also thinking about stuff to me that's obvious that we could be doing that we're not doing. All right, let me I'm sorry, I can't take any more calls. We got to wrap this Wednesday edition of Reality Check. We'll see you tomorrow, Thursday, 10 a.m. sharp. We got City Council Live tomorrow, so continue to listen in. We got the source with the Black Women's Leadership Council coming up next. I'm sure they'll be talking about this issue and others coming up next here on WURD. Want to thank Troy Wilmore, too, on the Board of Steel for getting it done. Philly and beyond, I want you to stay sharp, stay smart, but more importantly, please stay safe out there. Have a great afternoon, great evening. I will talk to you tomorrow, God willing, Thursday, 10 a.m. sharp. Take care.